Chapter 3804. Board's smile grew even brighter. Sorry, I don't understand what you mean. You want my men to put down their guns? I don't think it's that hard to understand, Lingu scolded. If you don't want me to kill him, then do as I say. Of course I understand. You yellow people better not think you're smart. Board stopped smiling. Are you mocking me for not being smart enough? Humph. Don't talk to me like that. At least from the looks of it, the one who's not smart enough isn't me, but you. Board wasn't dumb. To be able to control so many Hughes to work for him, other than his strength, he also had the IQ and EQ to crush the other Hughes. That was why he was able to secure his position as the boss of the Hughes gang. Lingu froze. He suddenly realized that he had been too impulsive. He hadn't made a proper judgment before attacking. I don't think it has much to do with me whether you want to kill him or not, Board said coldly. These people really didn't have any sense of humanity. They turned hostile and abandoned him. This bastard had drawn the line between him and the meat shield in the blink of an eye. Lingu was still too inexperienced. He didn't understand how the Hughes gang worked. The meat shield knew what kind of person Board was, so he didn't find it strange at all when Board said something like that. Board, you'll lose me as a friend if you do this. No, my brother. I really want to save you, but if this guy thinks he can use you to threaten me, I have to prove him wrong. Board shook his head. Otherwise, how can I stand in front of my brothers in the future? I can't make them lose their weapons and miss this deal just because of you. If I do that, I won't be a competent boss. Then do you think your brothers will be loyal to you if you do that? The meat shield asked. Board laughed without restraint. Meat shield, don't talk to me about loyalty. Do you think you're here to save your boss because you're loyal to him? No, let me tell you, it's not your loyalty to Mr. Carlos that made you come here. It's your loyalty to the dollar. The meat shield didn't refute and only looked at Board coldly. I have never asked my brothers to be loyal to me. Why should they be loyal to me? I just need them to be loyal to the dollar. Board said, I can bring them more dollars. If they didn't follow me, they wouldn't have the chance to earn $20,000 today. That's why they are loyal to me. Loyalty to me is the same as loyalty to the dollar. Why are you loyal to Mr. Carlos? It's only because you can earn millions of US dollars from him every year. That's why you chose to be loyal to him. Board was right. Everything he said hit the nail on the head. Whether it was the way he looked at himself and the people around him, or the way he looked at the people around him and the people around him, they were all very clear. In the United States of America, where capitalism was the central principle, capital was the greatest power. What is capital? To put it bluntly, it was money. Anyone would be loyal to money because here, money was supreme. As long as you had money, you could do whatever you wanted. That was because the United States of America was such a country. When it became the wealthiest and most powerful country, it began to do whatever it wanted in the international community. The United States of America could do whatever it wanted for huge benefits, including strategic and economic benefits, in other countries that had huge amounts of energy and oil. Moreover, its strategic position in Africa was self-evident. Western countries had always valued human rights and freedom. The United States of America used human rights as an excuse to interfere in other countries' internal affairs. When a country did this, its citizens would naturally do the same. As long as they had enough money, enough power and enough status, they could do whatever they wanted. If a rich person in the United States of America was suspected of murder, most of them could be exonerated. Why? Because they had money. Of course, this condition seemed to apply to every country. Once people in socialist countries had enough money, they might be able to get away with murder easily. In short, the meat shield couldn't refute Board's words. His people are useless, but my people are still useful, right? Su Yun smiled and said, Your loyalty is to the dollar. If he dies, you won't get a single cent, right? Su Yun's words made the smile on Board's face disappear. Do you dare to do it? Do you know how many men I have? Do you know how many guns I have? Board said coldly, If you know, I promise you'll shut up immediately and stop talking nonsense. You just said that you have 64 people. Su Yun said, but your money bag is in my hands. Who dares to shoot? So don't make such meaningless threats. But if you dare to hurt him, you'll definitely die. Board raised his voice, trying to suppress Su Yun. Su Yun shook his head. Whatever you say. Unless I kill him, you won't dare to shoot. Otherwise, you're all afraid of accidentally killing him. If he dies, everyone's $20,000 will be wasted. You won't dare to kill him, Board emphasized. What makes you say that? If I hand him over to you, will you let me go? Haha. You're joking. You're a gang in L.A. You're a group of people who commit all kinds of crimes. How can I believe you? Su Yun said, but I want to remind you that if I kill him and you shoot at me, the police will be here in 3 minutes. This is a wealthy district. The police might come faster. Board was stunned, and so were his subordinates. You think the L.A. police are all useless? Su Yun asked. They might not be able to catch you today, but they'll definitely find out that this has something to do with your gang. A gang killing a rich man in a wealthy district. Do you think this is a small matter? I won't kill him. It's you, Board emphasized, glaring. Su Yun retorted, do you think anyone would believe you? I don't think anyone will choose to believe you, right? No. Board said angrily, of course they'll believe you. They have to believe you. Don't be so confident. You're a gang. The police won't believe you. The rich people living here won't believe you either. Su Yun said, the rich people here will do everything they can to get rid of you. Because they know that if you dare to come here to kill someone the first time, you'll dare to come here a second time. None of them can be sure if they'll be the next one. Board was speechless. So I can guarantee that if he dies here today, you'll shoot a few more times and make this matter known to everyone in Beverly Hills. You'll be famous. Su Yun had a smile on his face. All the rich people in the wealthy district of Beverly Hills will use their connections to eradicate you as much as they can. Hearing this, Board's back was covered in cold sweat. These rich people had a lot of power. They all had very close relationships with the members of the government. If these people wanted to get rid of the Latin American gang, Board knew very well what would happen to him. Everything he had worked so hard to obtain over the years would be for naught. The Latin American gang would be wiped out by the Los Angeles police. Unless he obediently escaped back to Mexico, he might be lucky enough not to be caught or killed on the way back. If he was caught, he would be thrown into the most notorious prison and imprisoned for years. Board didn't want to become a prisoner. He had too many enemies. If he was locked up, who knew if his neck would be pierced by a wooden stick the next day? He would never allow this to happen to him. Absolutely not. Facing Su Yun's confident smile, Board's mind went blank. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Chapter 3805. I'm sure you don't want any of this to happen, right? Haha. I don't want any of this to happen either. Su Yun said calmly, because the premise for all of this is that he dies first, and then I'll be beaten up into a beehive by you guys. That won't do anyone any good. Board suddenly let out a sigh of relief. Everything Su Yun said was only the worst-case scenario. You know, I have a very good way to solve our current problem, Su Yun said. I just need your cooperation. Board frowned. What is it? You just need this fatty to hand over the US dollars he promised you, and then you guys can leave. Everyone will be fine, and you guys will get what you want. Why not? Su Yun said, he was the one who brought you guys into this mess. He has to take responsibility for this. The meat shield glared at Board. You don't have the right to do this. I brought you here to do something, not to be used by him. I wasn't used by him, Board said. Board said, I just think that what he said makes a lot of sense. I think so too. We came to the wealthy district to cause trouble because you tricked us. This place is not where we should be. The meat shield was speechless at this unreasonable guy. You were the one who raised the price. You raised the price, betrayed us, and turned around to bite us. Bored, everything you did today makes me look down on you. I don't need you to look down on me. Bored shook his head. My brother, you're not important to me. I trusted you. That was the stupidest decision I've ever made in my life. I shouldn't have the slightest bit of trust for people like you who don't keep their promises. The meat shield lost his temper. You're a trash can. You're only fit to stay in that filthy district, doing filthy things, taking in filthy people. You'd better shut your mouth before I kill you. Bored glared at the meat shield. My brother, I'm reminding you one last time. I don't have a good temper. You should know this better than anyone else, right? The meat shield replied coldly, Do you think I'm a nice guy with no temper? Bored shook his head. Meat shield, we've known each other for a while now. From what I know, you're just a piece of trash with a shiny exterior. You're essentially the same as us. It's just that your luck is better than ours. That's all. No, we're not the same. The meat shield vehemently denied. I will never become a dirty gang member. Bored couldn't help but want to raise his fist, but he controlled himself in the end. My brother, I've always given you a chance. Don't think so highly of yourself. The things flowing in your bones are the same as ours. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to us to solve this damned problem as soon as it happened. The meat shield's face trembled as he shook his head. He would never admit it. If it weren't for the fact that Lin Ji's dagger was still pointed at him, he would have stepped forward and taught Bored a lesson. Things had taken such a drastic turn in such a short period of time. Bored had control over everything, but in the blink of an eye, it was taken away by Su Yun. Su Yun's hand was still on the legend's shoulder. The legend finally realized that whoever controlled him had the right to speak. His life was in the hands of whoever controlled him. That person could make others listen to him obediently, not because of how noble he was, but because of the US dollars he had in the bank. That was all. Su Yun gave Lin Gu a look. There was no point in controlling the meat shield now. They had already shed all pretense of cordiality. Bored's expression was even more shocked than the meat shield himself when he let go of the meat shield. He immediately became alert. Fortunately, he still had a few subordinates to protect him. Otherwise, he would have panicked. The meat shield had many ways to deal with him. Bored didn't want to embarrass himself in front of his subordinates. Things between us can't be explained in a short period of time. Bored wanted to pacify the meat shield first before dealing with the situation at hand. Su Yun, however, felt that it was better for them to be angrier. Things between you two can't be explained in a long period of time. Why don't we make it clear now? How much money do you want from the fat guy? If he can't give it to you, you can shake hands and go back. There's no need for us to alert the police. If the fat guy can't give it to you, it's up to you what you want to do. But I still want to warn you that this isn't a place to cause trouble. He's trying to sow discord between us. The meat shield immediately made a judgment. Bored, you better think carefully before you make any decisions. Bored laughed coldly. He wasn't an idiot. He could hear some of Su Yun's intentions. But people in different positions had different ways of thinking. The meat shield wasn't afraid of causing trouble in the wealthy district because he had a legitimate identity. He was the bodyguard of that damned rich man from Huaxia. Bored knew very well the difference between a person like him and a meat shield. No matter how powerful he was, the wealthy people living in the wealthy district didn't think much of him. He was just a small leader of a gang. In the eyes of the wealthy, he was an insignificant character. And a person like the meat shield was just a small character in the eyes of the rich. But he was a small character that they could hire to protect them. So, they looked at the meat shield differently. These people looked at gangs with disdain. Unless he could become a big shot in the upper echelons of the American mafia, Bored would always be a small character in the eyes of these rich people. If something happened here, the meat shield could escape with his mouth and the help of a few rich people. But Bored couldn't do that. His power was greater than the meat shield's, and he had more people than the meat shield. His status in the poor district was much higher than the meat shield's, but this wasn't the poor district. It wasn't the black district. It wasn't a district where the Asian mafia could strut around. This was Beverly Hills, the wealthy district of Los Angeles. It was a place that people like them couldn't afford to offend. I don't know what kind of decision I should make now. Meat Shield, tell me, how should I deal with this? Board stared at the Meat Shield and said, "You have so many men, so many guns. Are you afraid of him? He's just a fox pretending to be a tiger. He doesn't even dare to touch Mr. Carlos." The Meat Shield roared. Board shook his head. "My brother, you dare to bet, but I don't dare to. This isn't a bet. Trust me. He doesn't dare." The Meat Shield said angrily. "What if he dares?" Board said. "If he really kills Carlos, you won't lose anything. Regardless of whether I shot him dead or not, Carlos' death would eventually be traced back to me. Trouble would follow me. It won't follow you. I don't have as many damn rich white friends as you do." In Hua Xia's words, the Meat Shield was talking like it was nothing. He had never considered this problem from Board's perspective. So now, this matter was out of control. It had reached a point where the Meat Shield couldn't control it. Board was a mafia. He was the most uncontrollable. His thoughts changed very quickly. 1 second, he might think that he shouldn't cause trouble here. But in the next second, if he broke the bottom line, he might be crazier than anyone else. This was also a situation that Su Yun couldn't control. It wasn't just Board who was in a difficult position. Su Yun was also very cautious. He knew that any word he said would put pressure and threat on Board. Otherwise, if this guy lost control, Su Yun would have a headache facing so many guns. Su Yun didn't just have to protect his and Lin Ji's lives. He also had to protect the legend's life. If the legend died, all the capital that Hua Xia had poured into the American Empire would be completely gone. Naturally, it would become something in the pockets of the Americans. Su Yun, who looked calm on the surface, was actually in a state of turmoil. He gave Lin Gu a look, telling Lin Gu to stay as far away from the other party as possible. Chapter 3806. A gang war could happen in the blink of an eye. No one could guarantee that the other party would do something crazy in the next second. Meat Shield, I'll give you face. I don't have any other requests. 5 million. Just take it as me giving you face. Board's mind was still clear. Now was not the time to ask for money. What he was most worried about was that things would blow up. If things blew up and there was no way to resolve it, forget about money, the losses might be even greater than what Board had imagined. Actually, this was the case for many things. Things that could not be controlled were much more dangerous than things that could be controlled. "But there's one thing I hope you can do, Mr. Carlos," Board said. "So many of my men have at least been here before. The money that belongs to them can't be less." "But you didn't do anything." The Meat Shield could not understand why Board could say something so shameless. Board looked at him seriously. "I didn't do anything? Think about it. Did I really not do anything? If I still have this tough attitude, Mr. Carlos will definitely die. If any of my men dares to shoot, he won't hesitate to kill Mr. Carlos, right? So, me backing out now is the best way to protect Mr. Carlos. There's a saying in Hua Xia, advance in order to retreat. What I'm doing now is advancing in order to retreat." How shameless! The Meat Shield cursed in his heart. Board was determined to play this dirty trick with him. The Meat Shield could not change Board's mind, but he had to think of a way to change the situation. Only when the situation changed would Board's thoughts change. Only then would Board's stance change. Only then would there be new developments. In order to solve this problem, the Meat Shield gritted his teeth and did something extremely dangerous. He did not expect himself to do something so suicidal. He suddenly pulled out his gun. Board reacted the moment the Meat Shield made a move. This was a survival technique of the Mafia. He quickly hid behind his men. There was nothing better than a human shield. Even if a pistol bullet could penetrate his body, it would not kill him. Of course, Su Yun and Lin Gu were also experienced people. They reacted immediately. Su Yun quickly dragged the legend to the side of the wall. Then, he turned around and hid in the corner of the stairs. Lin Gu, on the other hand, kicked the sofa over and covered himself with it to temporarily block the bullets. Bang! The tank pulled the trigger without hesitation. What Board did not expect was that the meat shield did not intend to hurt him. The bullet was off target. Even though Board immediately realized the meat shield's intentions, he couldn't stop his subordinates in time. The tank's gunfire was like a fuse, and he nimbly rolled away after igniting the fuse. The position of the meat shield instantly became the focal point of the firepower. The people surrounding the house did not hesitate to pull the trigger. Gunshots rang out everywhere. In the quiet, wealthy district, such intense gunshots in the middle of the night could even eliminate the need to call the police. It was no different from calling the police directly. "Don't shoot. Everyone, stop." Board roared angrily. This was the meat shield's plan. Once they opened fire and caused such a huge commotion, Board would definitely be involved. "Board, if you don't want to get into trouble, save them immediately." The meat shield did not forget to give Board an order even at a time like this. Board angrily punched the wall. "Damn bastard. I'm telling you, your only chance now is to help me solve this problem. As long as you solve this problem, I promise you and your men will not get into any trouble. Mr. Carlos and I will definitely help you solve everything. Capture him." Board was furious, but he had to give the order. The people outside the house rushed into the house through the windows. Board's men also pounced on the meat shield. This group of idiots really made Board speechless. Why would they want to capture the meat shield at a time like this? Could it be that they did not understand what he meant? "I told you to capture those two." Board was furious. At this time, Su Yun had already escaped to the second floor with the legend. Lin Gu had also rushed to the stairs amidst the chaos. All the guns were aimed at the staircase. Lin Gu picked up the sofa that he had been carrying and stuck it between the banister and the wall. His legs kicked off the ground, and with a tap of his toes on the sofa, he leaped up to the second floor like a carp jumping over a dragon's gate. Concentrated gunshots rang out again. The fine leather sofa was riddled with holes. It was unbearable to look at. If you don't want the police to increase the number of police officers or even arrange for a SWAT tactical team to capture them, then stop shooting. The meat shield said angrily. Making such a loud noise in the wealthy district of Los Angeles could easily alert the police to arrange for a SWAT tactical team. If that happened, none of them would have a good ending. The SWAT tactical team was the kind of anti-violence and anti-terrorism special law enforcement unit in the United States that had advanced technology and tactics. It belonged to the local police department and was somewhat similar to the Huaxia Special Police, but it seemed to be more advanced and superior. To put it bluntly, it was an advanced police force with special weapons and tactics. In the United States, there were SWAT tactical teams in the city police, state police, federal police, and military. Of course, different places had different names. In Los Angeles, it was called SWAT, but in New York, it was called ESU. In Chicago, it was called HBT, and in Miami, it was called SRT. In any case, when carrying out important missions, the tactical teams in each state could form a joint SWAT tactical team. It was said that when necessary, they could even form a tactical team with the FBI, which was the Federal Bureau of Investigation, to carry out interception missions throughout the United States. Of course, although there were many SWAT tactical teams in the United States, there were only about 20 of them capable of carrying out difficult missions. Coincidentally, the SWAT tactical team in Los Angeles was one of the teams capable of carrying out difficult missions. Therefore, the meat shield did not want the SWAT guys to get involved at all. If they did, they might all be arrested and brought back. The meat shield believed that was definitely not the result that Mr. Carlos wanted. When Board and his men heard the meat shield's words, none of them dared to shoot anymore. They had heard of the SWAT tactical team's reputation, and some people had also seen the abilities of these guys, so they were a little worried and afraid. After all, this was a wealthy district. The Los Angeles police would definitely not hesitate to send out their best team to solve the problem for the safety of the rich. It should be noted that in the past, many major cities in the United States had serious security problems. Many law enforcement officers were killed by criminals, so the United States organized special police assault teams to deal with armed criminals. The first time such a team was organized was in Los Angeles, to deal with the Walter riot, which was the riot in the Black District of Los Angeles. Therefore, the SWAT tactical team was definitely an organization that the black people disliked very much. However, they were also afraid. After all, their riots had been ruthlessly suppressed. Moreover, the strength of the SWAT tactical team in Los Angeles had improved by leaps and bounds. Even the equipment and training of the criminals had improved. Naturally, they would continue to improve their own strength. In the southern part of the United States, a large amount of drug money provided a huge amount of resources to the criminals. Many countries there were unwilling to provide more resources for law enforcement. In these countries, due to intimidation and corruption, some politicians and the military even assisted drug traffickers to grow, produce, and export drugs. This caused the United States to need more people to grow quickly, to grow into a force that could deal with danger. The SWAT tactical team's strength was not what it used to be. The Mexican gangs knew all too well what the SWAT people would do to them if they were caught. Those guys would not treat them like humans. In the eyes of the SWAT people, the Mexicans seemed to be born with the word drug traffickers printed on their faces. If they did not dare to shoot because they were worried about attracting the attention of the SWAT, it was definitely good news for Su Yun and Lin Gu. This way, they would not have to worry about the legends accidentally getting shot. Don't shoot randomly. Carlos is still in his hands. If Carlos dies, none of you will get the money. Board also used another method to warn his subordinates. Chapter 3807. The meat shield looked at his watch. The police will be here in 3 minutes. We have to end this as soon as possible. It's all because of you. Board couldn't wait to vent all his anger on the meat shield. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be in this mess now. Damn it. If you were a man of your word, things wouldn't have turned out this way. The meat shield wasn't afraid of Board at all. He was Board's protective talisman. If the police came, Board would need his help. Therefore, Board didn't dare to do anything to him. As expected, Board was so angry that he couldn't say a word. He turned around and vented his anger on his subordinates. Go up and arrest him. Remember, you can't hurt Mr. Carlos. A few guys with quick reflexes quickly pushed the sofa to the side and rushed to the second floor. Quick, quick, quick. We don't have time. The police will be here soon. Board was burning with anxiety. Once the police siren sounded, they had to escape immediately. If they didn't escape when they heard the siren, they wouldn't have another chance. The first few Vietnamese gangsters who rushed up wanted to make a contribution, but their ending was tragic. Lin Gu had already jumped up to the second floor, but when he heard that they couldn't shoot, he immediately guarded the staircase. Su Yun, on the other hand, brought Legend to hide on the third floor of the house. Su Yun needed to hold on until the police arrived. Once the police arrived, he would be able to find a chance to escape with Legend. Otherwise, the Malaysian gangsters would have so many guns in their hands. A single bullet from them could take away half of Legend's life. Lin Gu aimed at the first guy who rushed up and stomped on him. His pitch-black face was covered with dirt and gray shoe prints as he fell straight down. Not only did he fall on his back, but he also knocked down the 2 people behind him. The few people who had just rushed up all rolled down, causing the people below to be a little anxious. Although Board had brought more than 60 men with him, the staircase was only so big. Only 3 to 5 people could squeeze up. It was impossible for dozens of people to go up together. They had completely lost their advantage in numbers. Board and the meat shield also restricted them from using pistols. This made these gangsters extremely frustrated. What's the point of playing? Go. Move faster. Hurry up and bring him back. There's no time. Board continued to roar downstairs, but his ears were already focused on the sounds outside the house. Since they were working for Board, they had to listen to Board's orders. The gang once again rushed up the stairs in a frenzy, trying to send Lin Guo flying with brute force. In their eyes, Lin Guo was just an Asian who didn't look strong. They had bullied this kind of Asian too many times. There was nothing to be afraid of. Unfortunately, Lin Guo was different from those cowards. Faced with another charge from the Tibetan gang, he once again punched and kicked them away. If they didn't tumble to the ground, they would be smashed to the ground. Those who were smashed flat on their backs would lie on the ground for a long time, unable to move. Damn it! This isn't going to work. The meat shield cursed. Board glared at the meat shield angrily. Then tell me what to do. Give me a plan to solve the problem. Tell me. If you have a solution, tell me. If you don't, then shut your mouth. The tank wanted nothing more than to punch Board's ugly black face into pieces. Su Yun had already dragged Legend to the 3rd floor. He looked out the window and confirmed the location of the car to see if it would be easy to escape. The answer was no. Board and the gang's cars had already blocked the road. You. What are you doing? Legend looked at Su Yun nervously. I'm trying to see where I can jump so that you won't fall to your death. Su Yun glared at Legend. Legend's lips trembled. Don't jump here. There's a garage below. There's no grass in front of the garage. It's paved with hard pavement. There's a garage below. Su Yun glanced at Legend. How many cars do you have? Many. Legend answered carefully. Do you want to go off-road? Su Yun looked at the fence and bushes in the courtyard. It was completely hopeless for a car to drive through, but it was different for an off-road vehicle. If it was a professional off-road vehicle with a high chassis, the effect would be even more different. Perhaps it would be easy to get through. Legend swallowed. I play off-road vehicles. But I haven't really gone off-road. What kind of cars do you have? Su Yun asked. Mercedes-Benz G-Class? Or a Jeep Wrangler or something like that? Legend shook his head. F***CK. You don't even have those and you still have the nerve to say you play off-road vehicles? Su Yun almost cursed and punched him. I play with pickup trucks. Big pickup trucks, Legend said. Jeep Wranglers and Mercedes-Benz G-Class are what people in China like to play with. Americans like to play with big pickup trucks. Su Yun's eyes lit up. Big pickup trucks were even better. The large pickup trucks from the American Empire were not like the ones produced by the Great Wall of China. The large pickup trucks from the American Empire were all high chassis and powerful. Their performance was especially awesome. It was worth a try to smash through these fences and crush the bushes. The screams on the 2nd floor continued. Su Yun shouted downstairs. Pigeon, find a way to block the stairs. Come up immediately. I think the police will be here soon. Lin Guo answered and kicked the 2 people down again. Then he ran back and dragged a solid wood cabinet behind him. Before the people below rushed up again, Lin Guo pushed the cabinet down the stairs. Clang! The cabinet was stuck in the stairs. Lin Guo did not stay idle. He pushed down the sofa and coffee table on the 2nd floor. Anything that could be moved and could be pushed down. A guy was hugging the cabinet and trying to move away, but the coffee table that came crashing down directly broke his fingers, causing him to howl in pain. Amidst his screams, the sound of a police siren could be heard. The siren pierced Board's heart like a knife. Board trembled. He turned and grabbed the tank's shoulder. I need you to promise me that you won't betray me. I also want to promise you, but... The tank looked at Board. I'm afraid I can't promise you anything. Do you think you can still escape? As Board had brought a lot of people, there were a lot of cars as well. When they arrived just now, the cars were parked in a mess. The entire road was blocked and they didn't have enough time to escape. Then you have to promise me something. Board said angrily. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have come here. So you have to promise me that I won't get into trouble because of this. Otherwise, I won't let you leave here alive. The tank was furious, but his expression was calm. Of course I will, if I can. Because you're my brother. My brother. Board loved to say these words, but he knew very well that these words didn't mean anything to him. That's right. Board did treat the people around him as his brothers. But in his world, brothers were meant to be used and betrayed. They weren't meant to be loyal. As long as you can promise me that I won't get into any trouble. I promise, I'll let you taste joy. Board knew that if there were no benefits, the tank would not help him. I promise, my brother, I'll let you taste joy. I promise. The tank smiled faintly. Then, he watched as the group of Vietnamese gangsters frantically tried to escape. Unfortunately, they weren't fast enough. This was a wealthy district. Although there were no SWAT tactical teams like they were worried about, there were more than 10 police cars. Dozens of police officers were enough to subdue them in the shortest amount of time. The American police were different from the Chinese police. As long as they felt a threat, they could open fire. Therefore, the first reaction of the American gangsters when the police aimed their guns at them was to cover their heads and squat down. No one wanted to be shot to death by the police. Because that would be a pointless death. Chapter 3808. Board was extremely frustrated. It was impossible for him to run away. He could only hope that the meat shield could help him. More than 60 Vietnamese gangsters were all under control. The police raised their guns and shouted, "Put down your weapons. Put your hands on your heads and squat on the ground. Quick. Let them all gather in the house. It'll be easier for us to control them." The pot-bellied sheriff pulled on his belt, which had a golden star on it. "Don't let anyone escape. This is Beverly Hills. Even the chief police officer will pay attention to the cases here." "Yes." His subordinates all answered seriously. The high-ranking officers worked especially hard under the sheriff's supervision. "It's me." The meat shield raised his hands carefully and shouted at the sheriff in the distance. "Sheriff Ed." "It's me." In an instant, more than 10 guns were aimed at the meat shield. The meat shield raised his hand to let these people see that he was not a threat at all. Because of his friendship with Sheriff Ed, he was not afraid of these police officers. Ed frowned and looked at the meat shield under the dim light. He froze and said in surprise, "Why are you here?" "Sheriff Ed, can you let them shoot first?" The meat shield said awkwardly. Although the police wouldn't shoot randomly, being targeted by so many guns was quite scary. Ed waved his hand and signaled for everyone to do what they needed to do. Then he said to the meat shield, "Come here." Board, who was squatting behind the meat shield, hurriedly reminded him, "My brother. Don't forget me. Don't forget me." The meat shield ignored Board and walked straight to Sheriff Ed. Although Board was angry, he didn't dare to stand up. He didn't know the sheriff, so if he stood up and shouted, if he stood up and stood up, he might get a few bullets. Board didn't want to die, so he didn't plan on doing anything out of line. "Sheriff Ed, my boss has been kidnapped. He's still in the house." The first thing the meat shield wanted to deal with was the legend, not Board. Ed patted the meat shield. "This is your boss's house?" "Yes, Sheriff." The meat shield nodded. "They're 2 Hua Xia people. They're very dangerous. Please save my boss. Do they have highly lethal weapons in their hands?" Aida was stunned for a moment. Normal criminals would at most have pistols or rifles in their hands. The meat shield said that the 2 Hua Xia men were extremely lethal, so he could only interpret it as them possessing weapons that could kill. The tank didn't know how to explain and didn't want to waste time, so he simply nodded and said, "Yes." "Attention, everyone. There were 2 criminals in the house. Hua Xia people, armed with highly lethal weapons, have hostages." Aida said to everyone, "Be careful. If there's a chance, kill him immediately." At this moment, Su Yun and the others who were on the 3rd floor of the house also heard it. They cursed in their hearts. "That damn fatty really knows how to talk nonsense. Extremely lethal weapon?" Lingu spat, "Brother, it seems like they want to kill us directly, so make it sound more serious." Su Yun smiled. "I'm afraid I don't intend to give them that chance." We're all trapped here. Let's stop struggling and give up, okay? Legend looked at Su Yun and Lin Gu. Let's stop fooling around. When the police come, I'll say that you're my friends and they won't do anything to you. I'll say that the Hua Xia gangs came to rob us and that you helped me, okay? Lin Gu almost wanted to believe him when he saw the sincerity on Legend's face. If you were really a person of your word, there wouldn't have been so many stories between us. Su Yun smiled faintly. People who wanted to take back the money they lost at the gambling table through underhanded means had no credibility. Su Yun didn't trust Legend at all. The Legend wanted to explain, but Lin Gu slapped him in the mouth. Blood flowed out of his mouth, and his front teeth loosened. Can't you be more sincere? Lin Gu glared at him. I don't want to hear you talk right now. I'll hit you every time you say something. Let's see if you talk more or if you have more teeth. Legend looked at Lin Gu with pleading eyes, but Lin Gu didn't even look at him. The garage is down there. This guy has a lot of cars. He must have a good one. Su Yun smiled. When the police take control of the people down there and enter the house, we'll jump down, get the car, and leave. The car keys. Lin Gu stared at Legend. Legend wanted to cry. The keys are in the car. His cars were all highly equipped and had all kinds of functions such as keyless entry and start. So, he usually left the keys in the car so that he didn't have to look for them. If you lie to us, I'll cut your tongue out. Lin Gu threatened. Su Yun did not care about this. Even if this guy was lying to them, he could just smash the car window to open the door. He could then find the ignition wire and connect the ignition wire together. Then, he could connect the ignition wire and start the car by cracking the password. Legend nodded desperately. Yes, yes. I promise I won't lie to you. The police are almost here. Su Yun peeked out the window. Lin Gu pulled him up. You'd better shut up. I'll lead you to the dance later. Are you guys crazy? This is the 3rd floor. You want to jump with me? I don't want to fall to my death. Legend said in horror. You won't die from the 3rd floor. Lin Gu said. Don't you have that much common sense? The Legend of Legendary was rendered speechless. Only perverts like you wouldn't die from the fall. As for me, even if I jumped from the 2nd floor, I would probably die if I hit my head and neck. I'm so weak that even if I jumped from the 2nd floor, I would probably die immediately if I hit my head or neck. We won't let you die, Su Yun said to Legend. There's no point in letting you die. Legend knew that. But who could guarantee that he wouldn't make a mistake? If he made a mistake, he would either die or be crippled. The police had already entered the house. They're upstairs. The voice of the meat shield could be heard in the house. Get a few more people to clean up the stairs. The stairs are blocked by furniture. A police officer began to make arrangements. Although there were quite a few police officers at the scene, they needed someone to control the 60 or so Vietnamese gangsters and keep them in the house to prevent them from escaping. They also needed someone to watch over them. So, the police force wasn't particularly sufficient. 10 of you, keep an eye on these guys. As for the rest, 2 of you guard the door. The rest of you, go clean up the stairs. Be careful of the criminals upstairs. Ed began to make arrangements. After everyone was in position, Aida smiled with satisfaction. He didn't forget to remind the people upstairs. Listen up, you're surrounded. Stop resisting. There's no point in resisting. You can't escape. I'm warning you, assaulting police officers in the United States is a very serious crime, especially in Los Angeles. Do you understand? At this time, the police officers who were assigned to clean up the stairs began to move. Some of them cleaned up, some aimed their guns at the stairs, ready to shoot at any time. Su Yun smiled at Lin Gu. Lin Gu covered Legend's mouth and jumped out of the window on the 3rd floor without hesitation. Legend's heart almost jumped out of his chest. But when they landed safely on the ground, he quickly came back to his senses. Su Yun also jumped down suddenly. Before the legendary battle pet warriors could react, Su Yun had already destroyed the garage door system. The garage door slowly rose. At this moment, all the police and Vietnamese gangsters were in the house. The house was in a mess. No one noticed the sound of the garage door rising. The legend wanted to struggle, but Lin Gu had his mouth firmly shut. He couldn't utter a single word. Legend had no choice but to give up. He knew that his fate was completely in the hands of others. If he didn't want to get hurt, he had to cooperate. This was probably the first time in many years that Legend regretted buying so many cars. If he didn't buy a car, or even just a sports car, they wouldn't have to resort to this method. Chapter 3809. Los Angeles did not lack places to hide, because this prosperous city in the eyes of many outsiders also had slums. The lives of the residents in the slums were not even as good as those in the poor counties in Huaxia. Experts from the World Bank had concluded that the fastest income growth in the American empire over the past few decades was still the 1% of the population that was originally rich, while the poorest 5% of the population did not see any change in income. The median income of the rich had greatly increased in recent decades, but the serious imbalance had become more and more obvious. The 8% of the world's population received 50% of the world's income. Obviously, most people were outside of the 8%. Of course, the 8% were the world's elites, financial and corporate executives in rich countries, and a large number of emerging middle class in Huaxia, India, Brazil, and other countries. The people living in Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe, and the former Soviet Union did not see much change in income over the past few decades. The people in the slums of the developed countries did not see any change at all. The American Empire was actually a negative example because in many aspects, the American Empire often led the world and made other countries follow its footsteps. If other countries copied the American Empire, the future would not be optimistic. The increasing income and wealth gap in the American Empire represented the situation in the Western world, and this trend became more common in the late 1980s. In most developed economies, the top few percent of people with the highest income earned more, while the bottom 20% fell further behind. The slums of the developed countries were the best evidence of reality. Su Yun drove to look for the slums of the American Empire. These places were actually easy to find. After 10 minutes of driving at a very fast speed, he saw a sign in one of the blocks. The sign said, "Do you dare? Seize the opportunity, follow your dreams, take risks, fall in love, believe in yourself, ask questions, let go, make mistakes, start over, tell the truth, be responsible, find happiness, live in the moment." This was obviously something that only existed in the slums of Los Angeles. The rich did not need such toxic chicken soup for the soul at all. Among the developed economies in the world, the American Empire had the most extreme income and opportunity gap, and this gap caused fatal consequences in the macroeconomic field. To put it bluntly, in the past 40 years, the GDP of the American Empire had increased by more than 4 times, and in the past 20 years, it had almost doubled. However, everyone knew that the benefits belonged to the people with the highest incomes. Moreover, the benefits were increasingly concentrated among the wealthiest people with the highest incomes. The poor were poor 40 years ago, and they were still poor today. Income inequality in the U.S. empire had been gradually increasing, accompanied by tax cuts for the rich and lax regulation of financial institutions. This was not a coincidence. As investments in infrastructure, education, healthcare, and social safety nets were cut, this inequality worsened. The rising inequality eroded the political system and democratic governance of the United States, which then exacerbated the inequality. In the slums of Los Angeles, you could see people looking for food in the garbage, homeless people lying in the sunlight, poor people pushing all their belongings in small carts, and slogans saying, "God loves you," could be seen everywhere, because this seemed to be their only spiritual food. The United States did not lack all kinds of aid, but these people could only get a mouthful of food to fill their stomachs. Su Yun drove the car into a poor neighborhood. The legendary battle pet warrior in the car sat up in fright. Why did we come to a place like this? This was the slum. This place is very dangerous. It's very unsafe. Because it's not safe, it's easy for the police to miss this place. Su Yun said calmly. Of course, he knew how unsafe this place was. You don't understand the slums of the United States. The legend glared. There are only all kinds of drug dealers here. Pimps. Prostitutes. There's only filth and chaos here. There's only murder and robbery. This was the black slum area in the west of Los Angeles, also known as the gangster area by the locals. In fact, it was not far from the bustling city center. Just as the legend expressed his concern, a few black figures appeared in front of the car. They walked directly toward the car without any intention of avoiding it. Lin Gu said calmly, 5 black men. Such a blatant robbery. They really don't want to live. Su Yun shook his head helplessly. If they dared to block such a big car, one could imagine that these people would have pounced on them directly if they had encountered a car. When Su Yun stopped the car, the black men who blocked the car began to hit the car frantically. These people had no intention of stopping after forcing Su Yun's car to stop. It seemed that they had no intention of leaving until they got some benefits from Su Yun and the legend. The legend was so scared that he curled up into a ball. Su Yun knew that coming to such a place would make the legend feel a lot of fear. Even if he was kicked out of the car, the legend would not agree. Su Yun and Lin Gu stood up and opened the car door. Su Yun smelled a sour stench in the air. Both sides of the street were filled with garbage. There was some napalm on the road. There were even groups of crushed cockroaches exposed to the air. Su Yun suddenly remembered that when he was on a mission in Detroit, there was also a sour stench like this on the street. Then, a truck suddenly drove over from the intersection and stopped beside a group of black men. The black men around them came over to take a look. The people in the truck threw out a lot of clothes. They were all old and emitted a foul stench. Su Yun knew that these clothes were from the hospital or the crematorium. However, the people who received the clothes were still very happy. They did not even wash them and immediately put them on. These people did not have a place to live or a job, so they did not mind anything. As long as it was given to them, they would accept it without hesitation. They had no dreams, no ambitions, and no goals. They only had one thought, and that was to live. After all, there were many black men in the United States. However, how many of them could become sports superstars? Many people played basketball from a young age. However, professional basketball in the United States required not only physical fitness and basketball sense, but also basketball IQ. To put it bluntly, there were many people who were good at basketball in the United States. It was not that there were no people who could beat professional basketball superstars. However, if they did not have enough IQ, they would not be able to make it. After all, basketball was not a one-man game. It was a 5-man team game. It was the same in other sports such as football, baseball, ice hockey. All in all, although there were many ways to go about sports, there were still very few people who wanted to be outstanding. Other than playing sports, their other way out was to be in movies and music. Black people were also very talented in music. Their sense of music was very strong. Even people who did not have any musical foundation could rely on their natural sense of music to make records. Those gibberish rap songs made many black singers. The trendy Master Can was such a genius. He could make the so-called rap routine full of changes and competitiveness. However, such people were also very few. Therefore, most black people still lived in poverty. At this moment, the 5 people standing in front of Su Yun and the others were examples. How bad their lives were was perhaps something that Su Yun and Lin Gu could not imagine. Su Yun stepped on the huge pickup and raised his eyebrows as he asked the 5 people in front of him, "Hey, brothers, what do you want?" When the 5 black men saw that they were Chinese, they did not hesitate to take out the switchblade hidden on their bodies. "Cut the crap. Take out all the cash you have right now." "What era is this? Who still uses cash?" Lin Gu laughed at them from behind. "In this day and age, we all use mobile payments. Do you have WeChat? I'll send you a red packet. Alipay is fine too. I'll transfer it to you. We don't have cash." The other party did not understand what Lin Gu said at all. They thought that he was laughing at them and immediately turned hostile. "Believe it or not, I'll kill you right now." Chapter 38:10. Su Yun was very familiar with the black man's attitude. The memory once again brought him back to the time when he was in Detroit. When Su Yun first arrived in the city, he wanted to familiarize himself with the city's environment. He walked around the streets and drank 2 bottles of mineral water along the way. He wanted to find a bathroom, but the public bathrooms in the city were like a shop. Many people were there to solve all kinds of problems, many of which were inconceivable. The public washrooms in the slums were definitely not a good place to relieve one's bladder. This was because when one was in the middle of peeing, someone might break in, point a knife at the area below the waistband, and then rob them clean. The first time Su Yun went to the public bathrooms in the slums, he had to wait for a long time. The people who came here would lock the door from the inside. While waiting, Su Yun met a few people. An old man with white hair and tattered clothes, like a sack, walked past him and said a lot of things to him that Su Yun could not understand. It seemed like he was talking to Su Yun, but also seemed like he was talking to himself. So Su Yun ignored him, and he left. After a while, a black man walked over to Su Yun. Because the place was very narrow, the black man almost bumped into Su Yun. Then, he raised his head and said the same thing to Su Yun. "Believe it or not, I'll kill you right now." Even the threatening tone of these people was exactly the same. Su Yun still remembered that day when he wanted to solve his peeing problem. He had to wait for more than half an hour. Later, a police officer walked up to Su Yun and told Su Yun not to wait there, and that he could follow him to the police station to borrow the bathroom. As he said that, a crazy middle-aged woman leaning against the corner of the wall waved at Su Yun, and then said something to Su Yun that confused Su Yun. The police officer told Su Yun to stay away from the woman. He said that the woman might be some messy believer and would say something very inauspicious to Su Yun. Su Yun did not think much at the time. After all, he needed to pee, so he followed the police to the police station to borrow the bathroom. When Su Yun solved his personal problem and was ready to leave the police station, he also saw how busy the Detroit police station was. It was far beyond Su Yun's imagination. This was simply unimaginable in Huaxia. In many places with good public security in Huaxia, 1 report a day was almost enough. Some even had no report a day. But the police station here was different. There were many people lining up to report. Yes, just like the hall of the Huaxia Department of Motor Vehicles, it was always crowded with people lining up to check cars or go through some procedures. At this time, the crazy woman that Su Yun had met before hurried in and said that she had encountered an emergency. She wanted to go to the front and cut the line, but no one was prepared to let her. She had a piece of yellow transparent tape on her face. She removed the transparent tape and the flesh inside was badly mutilated. She told the people around her that she had just been shot and the bullet was still in her face. The scene was chaotic. Su Yun also saw a wall in the police station, which was full of photos. Su Yun thought that these were photos of all the police officers in the police station. After taking a closer look, he found that these photos were all of the police officers who had died in the line of duty. Even if it was Su Yun, if he lived in such a city, he would probably always be in a state of fear. He was a human, and he would also feel fear. However, he had enough courage to face his fear. So many times, people would think that he never felt fear at all. Courage was not to be afraid, but to face the fear head-on. On the streets of the slums, on the bus, there would always be people who would suddenly say a bunch of strange things to him, as if they were talking to themselves. Under such circumstances, Su Yun could not understand what they were saying. Although these people did not have guns, were dressed very shabbily, and did not have any malicious intentions when they spoke, they always gave people the feeling that they did not want people to come into contact with them. Moreover, they had no support, no mobile phone, nothing. Of course, there were some people like these people in front of him, who looked very fierce. But Su Yun felt that most of the poor people were relatively kind-hearted. It was just that their lives were extremely bad, so occasionally they would do something just as bad. The scars of any country would not be easily shown to others. The poor of the American Empire had always been struggling in the mud, unable to break free. At that time, Su Yun knew that it was not only Huaxia that had poor areas, it was not only Huaxia that had places where people could not afford to eat, and it was not only Huaxia that had people who could not afford to live in a house. Su Yun had always thought that the poverty of many people in Huaxia was a problem of the country. But now, in comparison, Huaxia had 1 billion more people than the American Empire. If the population of Huaxia was the same as the American Empire, there would definitely be no poor people in Huaxia. People in Huaxia would definitely be able to afford to live in a house, to buy a car, to have enough education, and to have better medical conditions. Now that Huaxia had 1 billion more people than the American Empire, it was very, very difficult for them to reach this point. Perhaps there were still many bastards who neglected their duties in Huaxia, and perhaps there were many greedy officials in Huaxia, but the country's leaders had always made the right decisions. Huaxia was also walking the right path. It was already very good for a country with such a large population to reach this point. Whether it was a big villa or a small apartment, whether it was a 3-bedroom house or a duplex house, whether it was 50 square meters or 500 square meters, the number of people who could afford to buy a house in Huaxia was really higher than the total population of the American Empire. Of course, the rich people in the American Empire lived very luxuriously. Their houses were dozens or even hundreds of acres. But the problem was that not all of them could afford to live in luxurious houses. The American Empire only had a population of about 300 million people. But how many people in the American Empire could not afford to buy a house? Su Yun looked at the few black men in front of him. To be honest, he really pitied the poor people in the American Empire. This was a heaven for the rich, but at the same time, it was also a hell for the poor. Not to mention the poor people in the slums, even the ordinary people in the American Empire did not have an easy life. The biggest difference between the architecture of the American Empire and Huaxia was the building materials. Huaxia's buildings were reinforced concrete, but in the American Empire, many ordinary people lived in wooden houses. There were definitely people who wondered why the Americans liked to use wood to build their houses instead of bricks. Some people said that wood was good, that wood was environmentally friendly, and that wood was tall. But that was pure bullshit. In the American Empire, the rich people lived in reinforced concrete buildings. Only the rich people would live in wooden houses. Because wooden houses were cheap. The American Empire had a lot of land and forests, so there was a lot of wood. Of course, it was not that the American Empire did not use bricks or cement to build houses. Concrete houses were also very common. They could be found in big cities like New York and Los Angeles. But to the Americans, bricks were the standard for luxurious houses. Because brick walls and cement were too expensive, many luxurious houses that looked like brick walls were actually decorated with the texture of the brick walls on the outside. Simply put, they were used to show off. The proportion of wooden houses in the American Empire was relatively high. These houses were very old and were built a long time ago. At that time, wood was a light material that was easy to obtain. It was easier to transport wood to the construction site than stone and brick. Compared to steel, concrete, and brick, the American Empire's wood was much cheaper. Imagine if there were no large-scale natural disasters. A small house could save a lot of money. Of course, there were other reasons. In some areas with frequent earthquakes, such as Southern California, the structure of wooden houses was relatively loose and the weight of the buildings was lighter. In the event of a strong earthquake destroying the houses, the probability of survival in a lighter wooden house was much higher than in a brick house. This was because most of the deaths caused by earthquakes were from being crushed to death. But it was not difficult to see that the American Empire's population was so small and the people were still so poor. They were obviously taking the wrong path. And this kind of situation would only get worse and worse. There would only be more and more people in the slums who relied on robbery and relief to survive. This was because the children of these people were born in such a chaotic environment. They did not even know who their parents were. Chapter 38:11. Put down the knife and get lost. While I'm in a good mood, I can still spare your dog lives. Lin Ge had already jumped out of the car as he spoke. He clenched his fists and faced a few black people from the slums who were ready to rob them. Perhaps it was because these black people had never seen such an arrogant Asian before. Suddenly, they looked at each other. Not only did they not approach with their knives again, but they also took a step back. This reaction made Su Yun and Lin Guo feel quite surprised. This should not be their style. The black people in the slums who were ready to rob basically did not care about their lives. Not to mention that Su Yun and Lin Guo were now bare-handed. Even if they had guns in their hands, the other party should be fearless. Therefore, Su Yun really did not understand. "You are from the Hua Hai gang?" The 5 black men asked warily. Then, a few of them muttered to themselves, "It must be the Hua Hai gang. Otherwise, how could they afford to drive such a good car? It must be the Hua Hai gang. I think you guys are crazy." After Lin Guo finished speaking, he was ready to make a move. A sharp-eyed black man suddenly said, "He doesn't have a gun on him. Why should we be afraid of them?" This reminder was like a stimulant, directly stirring up the violent emotions of the few people. The 5 black men rushed forward, holding switchblades and folding knives in their hands and directly stabbing at Lin Guo. These people did not even have a decent dagger, so Su Yun was really too lazy to make a move. In the blink of an eye, the 5 knife-wielding black men fell to the ground with swollen faces. One of them squatted on the ground and kept retreating, muttering to himself, "Your Hua Hai gang won't touch us." Why did you come here? There are no Chinese here. What are you talking about?" Lin Guo strode forward and pulled up the black man with a swollen face. "It's not us Chinese who are looking for trouble. It's you who are asking for a beating. Do you understand?" The black man shook his head and continued to say, "You are from the Hua Hai gang. It's the Hua Hai gang. You're not following the rules. You're not following the rules." He didn't know what method these 5 fellows used to spread the news. In a short period of time, many disheveled fellows rushed out from all kinds of streets and alleys. These guys were also holding weapons in their hands. Perhaps they weren't sharp knives, but they were definitely dangerous weapons that could be considered controlled weapons. F***CK. So many people. Lin Guo froze for a moment. "Brother, I'm afraid we'll have to fight again. These people don't have it easy either. They are all at the bottom of the American Empire." "We don't have to fight them," Su Yun said calmly. "I don't want to hit them, but looking at the current situation, if we don't do it, I'm afraid we won't be able to get out." Lin Guo shook his head helplessly. "If we don't do it, they will probably smash the car." Su Yun took a step toward the poor and homeless people who had surrounded them. He spread his hands in front of him and said, "We are just passing by. We have absolutely no ill intentions. I hope we can settle this peacefully. Otherwise, it won't be good for anyone." After saying that, Su Yun pointed at the 5 fellows who were beaten up. "If they didn't want to stop our car, none of this would have happened today." Su Yun continued, "They took out knives and wanted to kidnap us first. That's why we resisted. So, if you don't do anything to us, we won't provoke you." This was Su Yun's goodwill. However, Su Yun, who understood the poor areas of the American Empire, also knew that goodwill was useless. These fellows didn't just need goodwill. They also needed to be threatened and intimidated. Only then would they be obedient. "If you insist on provoking us, I promise you will regret it." Su Yun said, "You will end up like the 5 of them." "I don't want you to end up like the 5 of them. So, I hope you can understand what our ultimate goal is." The black people who had surrounded them began to whisper among themselves. However, they didn't seem to be too impulsive. Lin Guo was ready. If anyone dared to rush up, he would directly flatten them with his arm. Damn it! You better understand. Lin Guo was also a man with a sharp tongue. Under Su Yun's control, the group of people did not continue to move forward. The legendary battle pet warrior in the car was already trembling in fear. In his eyes, the group of black people outside was like a devil. He was worried that this group of people would eat him alive. This was the situation that the legendary battle pet warrior was most afraid of. However, what happened had happened. The legendary battle pet warrior couldn't control it, and neither could Su Yun. The fact that these black people didn't riot was already the best result. Who knew if they would suddenly riot? After all, black people's violent tendencies were unpredictable. Su Yun was still observing these black people. He believed that there must be a leader among them. In any circle of black people, there must be a leader. Even if they weren't a gang member, there would still be a leader. This way, the homeless group would have a central point. At least in the face of danger and difficulties, there would be someone who would stand up to them, encourage them, or give them moral support. At the very least, it should be able to give them some motivation to unite. Otherwise, they would be a plate of loose sand. It was too easy to deal with a plate of loose sand. The story of a chopstick and a pair of chopsticks was very popular in the United States. Even the people in the slums knew that a pair of chopsticks was not easy to break. They were just chopsticks, so it was easy for someone to break them. People who had this awareness all had a leader. Moreover, the United States was a country that produced a lot of leaders. Many people were keen to be this kind of leader, a self-centered leader, even in the slums. Hey brother, I know that these people will listen to you. I believe that you are rational. Su Yun finally found a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man looked to be around 40 years old. Although he had been pointed out by Su Yun, his expression was very calm. He didn't seem to be worried about what would happen next. Regardless of whether there was a quarrel or a fight, regardless of whether someone would bleed to death because of this, he was not worried. He was a leader who didn't need to do anything dangerous. You said you're not from the Hua Hai gang. Then who are you? The leader of the slums recognized by Su Yun also spoke. Su Yun shook his head. We don't even know what the Hua Hai gang you're talking about is. We're not even locals of Los Angeles. We don't even know what the Hua Hai gang you're talking about is, so I hope you can trust us. We won't provoke you. The Hua Hai gang is a Chinese gang. It's very close to our neighborhood. How can we believe that you're not from the Hua Hai gang? The other party continued, this isn't the first time you Hua Hai gang people have come looking for trouble. You don't seem to understand. My brother said that we're not from the gang you're talking about. We're not gang members. Lin Gu said, now I'm giving you two choices. Either we drive away, or we beat you down and drive away. What do you choose? Therefore, everyone's eyes were focused on their leader, which gave him a headache. Actually, this isn't a difficult decision to make. Su Yun said, we won't cause any harm to you if we drive away. But you've injured our people. If we let you leave like this, I'm afraid we won't agree. The people in the slums had a valiant aura since they were young. This was accumulated over time. They had all seen dead people, so general danger didn't scare them. Lin Gu looked at Su Yun. Brother, do you think we should continue to talk nonsense with them? Su Yun shook his head. There's no need to talk nonsense. It's a waste of breath. These guys can only be conquered by fists. There's no way they can listen to advice. I told you, we shouldn't have played the lute to a cow a long time ago. It's meaningless to play the lute to a cow. Lin Gu sighed. I warned you, but you didn't accept it. Su Yun said lightly, then we can only say sorry. Chapter 38:12. Su Yun's warning didn't affect them at all. In the end, the two sides still started fighting. After a few minutes, this group of people who only had street fighting experience were all taken down by Su Yun and Lin Gu. Su Yun was somewhat helpless. This way, they wouldn't be able to hide the car in this place. The people in this place would unceremoniously tear their car apart. Su Yun didn't doubt that they would do that. Just as Su Yun and Lin Gu were about to leave again, they suddenly heard a call from behind. Hey, bro, look here. It was Chinese. Although the voice was a bit stiff, Su Yun and Lin Gu still felt a sense of familiarity. They turned around and saw a guy wearing a cap. He had black eyes and yellow skin. One look and they could tell that he was Chinese. Hey, come over here. This isn't a place for you to stay, the man continued. I'll take you to the Chinese street. We can't leave the car here, Su Yun said. Otherwise, they'll tear it apart. The man shook his head. No, they won't. Black people worship violence. If you beat them with your fists, they won't dare to do anything to your car. Trust me, I've been in this area since I was young. I know what kind of people they are." At this time, the sound of police sirens from 2 blocks away also faintly entered Su Yun and Lin Ji's ears. It seemed that the Los Angeles police didn't plan to let this matter go easily. After all, a rich man was kidnapped. This was a big deal. "Okay then." Su Yun gestured for Lin Gu to bring Legend out. He walked towards the guy in the cap first to see if there was any danger. Lin Gu pulled the legendary Battle Pet Warrior out of the car. The legendary Battle Pet Warrior fell on his face. His inner cheek was cut by his teeth. He spat out a mouthful of blood and struggled. "We have to leave this place as soon as possible. It's too dangerous. I'll take you to the Chinese street. You'll feel safer there." Lin Gu dragged Legend away without giving him any chance to resist. Legend continued to struggle. No, the Chinese street isn't safe either. I don't want to." "No. Are you crazy?" Lin Gu said helplessly. "We're all Chinese. Why are you still afraid of danger? Do you think Chinese are safe? Let me tell you, Chinese people aren't safe at all." Legend shook his head desperately. For Chinese people, Chinese gangs are the most dangerous gangs. There are many black gangs, white gangs, Asian gangs, and Latino gangs, but they don't harass the Chinese. The ones who harass the Chinese the most are the Chinese gangs. "What do you mean?" Lin Gu rolled his eyes. Legend said with a serious face, "The Chinese mafia likes to bully their own people. We shouldn't go there. They won't treat us kindly." Su Yun walked in front and heard Legend's words. He also had serious doubts about the guy in the cap. After all, good people wouldn't show up in this kind of place in the middle of the night. Legend couldn't be a good person either. Maybe he was from a Chinese gang. Chinese gangs have conquered the world. Lin Gu said disdainfully. "They only bully weaklings. Chinese gangs conquering the world is just a story made up by some random literature stall." Legend of the legendary warrior glared at him. Most of the targets of the new Chinese gangs are the expatriates of Huaxia. The old-fashioned gangs, which were formed with a spirit of unity and mutual aid in order to survive in a foreign land, have long been mired in the dark cracks of politics. This is the current situation. Legend said that because a long time ago, the Huaxia expatriates who came to the United States were united. These people had the goal of revitalizing the Huaxia people. They did good deeds for all the Huaxia expatriates in the United States so that they wouldn't be bullied. Things were different now. Yes, the Hong Gang used to be very powerful. It was a legendary existence in the United States. Dragon Head, Hall Steward, Hall Steward. There were dozens of ranks, big and small, and their responsibilities were clearly defined. Legend had it that the revolutionary pioneer Mr. Sun was the leader of the Red Rod in the Hong Gang. The Hong Gang was an organization that coexisted with both revolution and murder. It had both good and evil. However, Huaxia was a law-abiding society. After the founding of the country, gangs were not allowed to exist. Therefore, some of the gangs moved to the United States. They had some influence in the beginning, but gradually declined. After the era of peace, these kinds of organizations became quieter. Slowly, the Hong Gang and other organizations like them only had the hat of crime and murder on their heads. Slowly, under various kinds of suppression, the Huaxia gangs were no longer as powerful as they used to be. Therefore, it was nonsense to say that the Chinese gangs had conquered the world. They were just idling outside. Even in the Chinese neighborhoods, some of the Chinese gangs didn't have much of a reputation. This was because they had long forgotten the purpose of their existence. The reason why they were formed in the first place was to protect their own Chinese people. But now, the strength of the Chinese gangs was mostly a legend. Many small organizations only bullied the Chinese at most. Even if there were many powerful gangs in the beginning, in the end, they were just ordinary gangs. They were busy fighting for territory and collecting protection fees all over the world. They relied on illegal businesses to survive. Many people thought that the Chinese gangs would join forces with other mafias. They would even make the mafias in the local countries become the underlings of the Chinese gangs. In fact, the Chinese gangs were not the same as the mafias. They didn't become a well-organized criminal organization like the mafias. Therefore, they couldn't be considered as powerful. To put it bluntly, the brutality of the Chinese gangs in the United States was more shown in internal strife. All kinds of Chinese people fought on the streets. In many places, it even caused demonstrations by the local people to protest against the Chinese street violence. Some of the Chinese gangs had completely degenerated into trash who relied on extortion to make a living. These Chinese gangs only dared to collect protection fees from Chinese people who opened supermarkets and restaurants. If they didn't pay, they would kill and injure people. Many times, the impression of Chinese gangs wreaking havoc in the foreigners' minds was just a byproduct of the foreigners' xenophobia. On the surface, the notorious overseas Chinese gangs seem to have become a thorn in people's side all over the world. 20 years ago, the police in the United States began to crack down on the Xia gangs. They strictly reorganized all kinds of gangs. At that time, it seemed that a fishing boat called Golden Adventure carried more than 280 Xia stowaways to a sea near New York. Because the contact person died in the revenge of the Chinese gangs, there was no one to help. The stowaways swam ashore and 10 people drowned. It was because of this incident that the Chinese gangs in the United States gradually fell to a low tide. In fact, many countries had a very strong crackdown on the Chinese gangs. This was the most impossible situation for the Chinese gangs to rise. For example, places like Italy didn't even allow the establishment of a Chinatown. The explanation given was that as long as the Xia people gathered together, there would be gangs. Anyway, their reputation had been completely ruined by some immoral people. There were also some news that some foreign media outlets maliciously hyped up to make the world feel disgusted with the Chinese. For example, there were German media outlets that claimed that the Xia mafia network was covering the whole of Europe. Some European news agency also announced that there were 250,000 Chinese gang members in Europe. Almost every year, there would be publications in France saying that the Chinese mafia and the Xia spy agency had infiltrated European society. All kinds of nonsense were made up. It was more interesting than the Xia web novels. Many upright Chinese people living overseas were suffering from unwarranted stigma. There were a lot of Xia people in this world. The number of Xia people who went abroad was more than other places. Once something happened to the Xia people, all kinds of news outlets would want to splash dirty water on the Xia people. This was unavoidable. So, a lot of things were not what ordinary people imagined. Su Yun felt that legend was right. If they really entered the Chinese street and were controlled by the Chinese gangs, they might be treated worse. But what could they do? Su Yun and Lin Gu didn't care who they would meet. As long as the police didn't find legend, it was fine. They didn't care if the people who wanted to cause trouble for them were Chinese gangs or Vietnamese gangs. Chapter 38:13. The man walked in front and skillfully circled around the small roads. This was exactly what Su Yun wanted. He wanted to use these undetectable places to avoid the pursuit of all the Los Angeles police. What kind of trouble did you get into? After passing through 2 blocks, the man suddenly turned around and asked, "I think we need to talk about this problem." Lin Ji's attitude towards him also lost its goodwill. "What do you mean? If you don't want to continue leading the way, then go play wherever you want. Don't look for trouble." "Oh no, you misunderstood me." The man in the cap shook his head. "I think that since I helped you, shouldn't you? Do you want money?" Su Yun smiled slightly. The man shrugged his shoulders. "No, to be exact, it should be a service fee. We didn't ask you to serve us. You wanted to do it yourself." Lin Gu said, "You're young. Don't you know what it means to be a good role model? Forget it, bro. Don't brainwash me with Xia. Although I'm Chinese, I came to the United States with my parents when I was very young." The man said, "When I was young, the Xia kindergarten teacher always taught me to learn how to be a good role model, but I found that it didn't apply in the United States. Su Yun didn't say anything. He silently took out $50. When the man saw Su Yun take out the money, his mood instantly became much better. When I came to the United States, the people here taught me that no matter what I do, I must remember to get my own reward. The United States was indeed a place full of tips. Any labor had the right to get their own reward. This was something that Hua Xia should learn. After all, there were too many moral kidnappings in Hua Xia. All kinds of moral kidnappings made people start to walk the path of Mother Teresa from a young age. If they could realize that this thing didn't need to be taken seriously, they could break free from the shackles as soon as possible. Otherwise, when they grew up, they would be controlled by these shackles and easily lose their minds. At least for Su Yun, that was the case. He thought about the disgusting incidents caused by the unethical behavior of Hua Xia. Even giving up one's seat on public transportation could lead to some extremely nasty incidents. This kind of thing rarely happened in the United States because the United States did not have so many moral constraints. If a young person did not give up his seat to an old person on public transportation, the old person would not think that the young person was immoral. After all, the young person had paid and had the right to enjoy the seat. Everyone's rights were the same. The old person would not point at the young person's nose and scold the young person for being uneducated just because the young person did not give up his seat. They would not force the young person to give up his seat, nor would they force the young person to sit on the lap of the young person. It was rare to see people taking advantage of their seniority in the United States. Giving up his seat was an act of kindness, but not giving up his seat was also a matter of course. It was not to say that the American Empire was an immoral country. It was just that no one here would use morality as a means to kidnap others. Thank you. The man in the cap took the money that Su Yun handed him and smiled. So many Los Angeles police officers want to arrest you. You must have run into some big trouble. Lin Gu rolled his eyes at him. Take the money and get lost. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Hey, bro. Can you be a little friendlier? I'm helping you. The man in the cap got the money and was in a good mood. He was not angry at Lin Gu at all. You know, I'm the know-it-all in the Chinese district. I can help you solve any problems. For example, do you need a place to stay now? Lin Gu ignored him. Su Yun had been observing the surroundings. To be honest, this Chinese district was a relatively poor one, so they had to be careful. I can provide you with a safe place to stay. That's my home. I promise that no police will disturb you. The man in the cap smiled. Lin Gu choked him. We don't want to scare your parents in the middle of the night. Please, bro. If I had parents, do you think they would let me wander around in the middle of the night? The man in the cap smiled and took off his cap. Su Yun and Lin Gu finally saw clearly that this guy was only 14 or 15 years old, but he was already close to 7 meters tall. He was definitely not short among his peers. Moreover, his tone was very mature. Su Yun and Lin Gu always thought that he was at least 20 years old. How old are you? Lin Gu was stunned. 13. After the kid finished speaking, he put the cap back on his head. My mother was killed. My father was arrested by the police for helping people transport drugs. He was also strangely labeled as a murderer and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Only 1 year has passed. Unless I can become a professional pitcher in the Los Angeles Dodgers or the entire American Empire's Major League Baseball, I definitely don't have enough money to find a good lawyer to bail him out. A Chinese kid with no one to rely on. If he wanted to make a name for himself in the American Empire, he could only place his dream in the Major League Baseball. Of course, this was his only choice. Among the 4 major sports leagues in the American Empire, this was the only sport that didn't require abnormal physical fitness. Whether it was professional basketball, football, or ice hockey, he would probably only end up being sent flying by his opponent. Lin Gu had a new understanding of this kid and didn't hate him as much. It's very dangerous for you to be outside alone at this time. I'm already used to it. The kid in the cap said, other than this, I can't find any other way to support myself. Su Yun couldn't help but ask curiously, Then what kind of job are you doing now? Now. The kid in the cap smiled. There are many Chinese people in Los Angeles. Every day, many new Chinese people come to this city. Every few days, there will be Chinese people who run into trouble in these places, especially at night. They may get lost, or they may be deceived and thrown here. My job is to save these people. After a pause, the kid in the cap added, the people in the black ghetto are not kind at all to Asians. I've helped many people without being robbed naked. Good kid. Su Yun smiled. So you rely on this to make money? Of course. The kid in the cap said, it's also very risky. I have to make some money. Otherwise, why would I take the risk? Lin Gur asked again, since you know that the police are going to catch us, why are you still helping us? Aren't you afraid that we are bad people? Of course I'm worried. The kid in the cap shrugged. If you are criminals, I will face two extremes. One is to get more money, and the other is to be beaten up and kicked away by you. He patted his pocket. In his pocket, there was the $50 that Su Yun just gave him. Looking at him, he seemed to be saying that his choice was not wrong. He made a very good choice. Only in this way can I survive in this city. The kid in the cap looked up at the moonlight. I know, I still have a long way to go. I have to live by myself. Otherwise, my mother will be very sad. The kid's words inexplicably moved Lin Gu. You should do less of this kind of thing in the future. Lin Gu frowned and said, if you meet the kind that will beat you up, you are lucky. But if you meet the kind that will kill you, it's not worth it. Yes, it's not worth it. The kid grinned, but looked at Lin Gu with a serious gaze and said, but I have no other choice. Su Yun helped the kid in the cap explain to Lin Gu, in the United States, formal places will not hire child labor. Those that hire child labor are informal or even illegal organizations. If he works in such organizations, he may not get any pay. He will only get food to feed himself. Because those illegal or informal organizations are not afraid of anyone suing them. The kid in the cap was stunned. You seem to know a lot about the United States. To be exact, he knew a lot about the living conditions of the people at the bottom of the United States. Su Yun smiled and nodded. After all, he spent some time in Detroit, Michigan. He had the most contact with the living conditions of the people at the bottom. He knew that there were some rich people in the headquarters of the United States General Automobile Company. After all, Buick and Chevrolet were sold in Huaxia every year. Chapter 38:14. I don't think you're bad guys, so I want to remind you that it's best not to stay outside for too long at night. The guy in the cap said, this place is definitely more dangerous than you think. Su Yun agreed, then we'll stay at your place tonight. While the guy was talking, Su Yun had already sensed many eyes staring at them in the dark. These people had quietly surrounded them. Lin Gu was already prepared to move his fists and legs, but Su Yun gave him a look, indicating that he should not make a big fuss and just pretend that he did not notice anything. After all, this was a neighborhood where Chinese people lived. Su Yun didn't want to lay a hand on these compatriots. Even if these people weren't good people, Su Yun still wanted to believe that these people were forced into this situation because they had nowhere else to go. Let's go. The guy in the cap smiled. Don't worry, I won't charge you too much. When Su Yun and Lin Gu brought the legend and followed the guy in the cap to his shabby house, they realized why the guy said that he would not charge them too much. No one would dare to charge him in a place like this. The room was a mess. There was a shabby two-seater sofa, and an 18-inch black-and-white TV that was considered an ancient relic in Huaxia. He didn't have a bed, only a blanket on the floor. Because the house was in the shade, and there was only one window, there was no way to ventilate the room, so the whole room was particularly cold. To put it bluntly, it was worse than the basement of the poor drifters in China. At least there was a bed in the basement, but this damn place did not even have a bed. How can I sleep in this damp place? The legend frowned in disgust when he touched the bedding. He looked at the kid in disbelief. How did you survive in a place like this? The guy in the cap had already noticed that the legend was different from the other two. I'm afraid you don't have the right to negotiate with me. You're not in a better situation than me. At least I still have my freedom. Su Yun glanced at the kid in the baseball cap. He thought to himself, although this little guy is young, his brain is quite smart. He can see things clearly. How do you know this guy is not as good as you? Lin Gu could not help but laugh. He is indeed not as good as you. You have your own little room and your own means of survival. He has nothing. The legend was scolded by Lin Gu directly. He did not dare to breathe loudly. Where are you taking this guy? The guy in the cap asked. You don't look like bad guys, so, this is not a kidnapping, right? At this point, the guy in the cap shook his head again and continued, but this guy is wearing branded clothes from head to toe. He must be a rich man, and he must be a rich man with the unique style of Huaxia society. I don't know what's going on, but the money in his pocket can't fit. Lin Gu smiled and nodded. Your analysis is spot on. We'll hide here for a while. Su Yun said to the guy in the cap, How much do you want? Name a price. The guy in the cap looked at the legend up and down, then said to Su Yun, Actually, I don't need to take your money. You've already given me $50. That's a lot for me. But this guy is here. I don't want to let him off so easily. Lin Gu glared at the legend. Hurry up, I'm talking to you. Take out all the money you have. Lin Gu said. The legend smiled bitterly. I don't have a penny on me. I was pulled down from the 3rd floor by you guys. I didn't have time to get money. Then take this as the room fee. Su Yun suddenly grabbed the legend's wrist and took off his watch. Are you kidding me? The legend's eyes widened. Do you know what watch that is? Tag Heuer Monaco V4. That was my birthday gift last year. I spent $180,000 on it. There are only 150 of them in the world. It must be worth more than $180,000 now. Do you really think I don't know about watches? Su Yun looked at the legend with disdain. This is indeed a limited edition. When it was released, it was only $100,000, right? The legend was stunned. He didn't expect Su Yun to know about luxury goods. This belt drive watch is called a miracle in the industry. It's not normal. It's a revolutionary belt drive and ball bearings instead of traditional gears and pinion. I think it's more suitable for people who want to take risks, Su Yun said, but not for you. The legend's heart ached. Since he wants to stay, he should pay the room fee. Su Yun handed the watch to the guy in the cap. I'm sure you can find a place to sell it for a good price. The guy in the cap was flattered. He took the watch from Su Yun and asked carefully, Is this really worth $100,000? Su Yun nodded. Of course, it has to be worth at least that much, or even more. It depends on whether you can find someone who really knows about watches. $100,000 was an astronomical figure for a guy who had been living in poverty since he was a child. In the guy's memory, he had never had more than $100 in his pocket. Even if he had, it was only for a short while. In this place, he needed to survive. Most of the time, he didn't know what to eat next. After eating today, there was no tomorrow. For example, if he didn't meet Su Yun tonight, he wouldn't be able to earn $50. Tomorrow he would have to go to the aid station to eat the food that was hard to eat. The people who went with him to the aid station might beat him up because of that. If he was still unlucky tomorrow and couldn't make any money, he would rather starve than get beaten up for a bite of food. Those guys were too cruel. It might take him many days to recover after being beaten up. I can't. The guy in the cap was shocked. It wasn't that he didn't want it. He wanted it very much. There was no doubt about that. But he knew that it was worth $100,000. If he had something worth $100,000 in his hands in this place, it would be like a bomb. Once people knew that he had something worth $100,000, the people here would kill him without hesitation. Yes, it was that cruel. These people would really kill him without hesitation and then take away the watch that was worth $100,000 US. Therefore, The guy in the cap didn't dare to take such a valuable thing. It wasn't that he wasn't greedy enough, but he wasn't bold enough. He was afraid of death. Why? Su Yun asked. The guy in the cap didn't know how to explain. He just kept shaking his head. I know what you're worried about, but I believe in you. Su Yun smiled and continued, if you can survive in this place, you must have a way to sell the thing in your hands. If it's only worth a few $100s, I can guarantee that I can find a way to sell it and make a profit. The guy in the cap snorted, unfortunately, it's not worth a few $100s. 100,000. He. I can guarantee that 99% of the people living in this neighborhood have never seen $100,000 in their lives. So what? Lin Gu said, they haven't seen it, but it doesn't mean that you can't have it. I want to have it. Believe me, I definitely want to have it. Brother, I've never wanted $100,000 as much as I do now. The guy in the cap was a little emotional. Do you know what $100,000 can do? For me. For me, there are so many things that I can do. He kept emphasizing, for him, which showed that he was a smart guy. He knew that different people had different thoughts when faced with the same amount of money. $100,000 might be a week's living expenses for a legend, but for the guy in the cap, it might be his life's dream. It could even be said that before Su Yun gave him the watch, he had never dreamed of having $100,000 in his life. Chapter 38:15. Do you see that? This will only confuse him. Give it back to me. The legend said. You can't force people to change. Why must you give him something he doesn't want? Lin Gu pushed the legend to the ground. I'm telling you, even if he doesn't want it, it's mine. You want it back? In your dreams. The legend's eyes almost popped out. He wanted to curse Lin Gu for being a bandit. But he knew that no matter how much he cursed, it was useless. Lin Gu didn't care about him at all. To Lin Gu, he was just a pile of sh*t, worthless. Cursing would only get him a beating, so the legend shut up. If you accept this watch, you don't have to think about anything else you want. Su Yun, you only have to think about one thing, and that is to leave this chaotic slum. Although $100,000 isn't much, it should be enough for you to live until you're 18, right? In the United States, 18 meant that one could be separated from their parents. The United States didn't have as strong a family concept as Huaxia. After 18, parents had no obligation to raise their children, and children could leave their parents and go wherever they wanted to go. They wouldn't feel guilty even if they didn't come back for years. Huaxia was different. There were many people in their 40s who were still living off their parents. They still needed their parents' help to buy a house, get a car, get married, and raise children. Of course, Huaxia people had a stronger family concept. If they couldn't visit their parents during festivals, they would feel guilty. What do you mean? The man stared at Su Yun, still not accepting the watch. You can find a proper job after you're 18. Su Yun, before that, I don't think you should continue to do this kind of thing. It's too dangerous. It doesn't make much money, and you can die at any time. The man smiled bitterly and shook his head. But I'm an uneducated person. Even if I'm 18, there won't be any company that needs an uneducated person like me. No, the education you received is different from the education others receive. Su Yun said, your peers all receive school education, but you receive social education and survival education, so I believe you're no worse than the others. The peaked cap man was stunned for a moment, and then a smile appeared on his face. Is what you said true? Aha, of course it's true. Su Yun said, actually, there are many jobs that don't require education from school. Social education is even more useful. For example, you can work in the second-hand car market as an intermediary. You can make a lot of money selling a car. After hearing Su Yun's words, the kid in the cap couldn't help but imagine his own future. Thinking about it this way, there were indeed many similar jobs that didn't require school education. The peaked cap man suddenly felt hopeful. The two Huaxia girls that he had accidentally met could actually bring him hope for the future. This was something that he had never dared to dream of, but today was different. Think about it yourself. Su Yun said, "Do you want to take this watch and exchange it for some money, live peacefully until you're 18, and then rely on your own hands to earn your own future, or continue to stay in the slums and do what you're doing now? Maybe one day you'll encounter something that you shouldn't, and then you'll be shot to death. Maybe you won't even live to 18. The peaked cap man suddenly grabbed the watch from Su Yun's hand. He had never had such a strong desire to live. He wanted to live, he had to live. A stranger believed that he could have a bright future, so why didn't he believe in himself? Why didn't he fight for it? Of course he had to fight for it. Or maybe he had to fight for a chance for himself, a chance to become an upright person. He had to do this before because he didn't have a chance. Now that he had a chance, did he have to personally reject it? Only a fool would reject this opportunity. He was not a fool, and he definitely wouldn't miss this opportunity that belonged to him on the road of life. Remember, if you encounter another opportunity in the future, you must grab it without hesitation, just like today. Su Yun smiled slightly. Although there are many opportunities in a person's life, there aren't many either. If you encounter one that you can definitely grab, don't miss it. You only need to grab 2 opportunities, and you can become a middle-class American. If you grab 3, you'll become a person of the upper class. The peaked cap man took a deep breath. He was going to drink this bowl of chicken soup. At this moment, the door behind the peaked cap man was kicked open with a bang. 20 minutes ago, a few guys rushed into a house. Inside the house, there were 4 guys with dragon and tiger tattoos, smoking cigarettes, playing mahjong. 2 circles. I've got a dragon and all of them are of the same color. Give me the money, give me the money. The guy with the buzz cut slammed the mahjong table in his hand on the table. Weren't you guys so F***ing excited just now? Ha 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 ha. The other 3 guys unwillingly threw the money to the guy with the buzz cut. A few of the guys who rushed in kept gesturing at the fierce-looking man with the buzz cut and waving their hands at him. The guy with the buzz cut spat out the cigarette butt in his mouth. He glared at the guys and scolded, "If you have something to say, say it. Stop gesturing and wasting my time. Can't you see that I'm winning money? If you dare to bring me bad luck, I won't let you guys off." "We saw that Tang kid bring 3 Huaxia girls to his house," one of them said first. The guy next to him didn't want to be outdone. "These 3 Huaxia girls must be rich." "Yeah, boss. They're hiding from the police. They must have done something shameful. These F***king rich people." The guy who spoke last must be a bastard who hated the rich. The guy with the buzz cut was stunned. "You guys are talking about Jimmy?" "That's right. That's the guy," the guy said. The other 3 who were playing mahjong also turned their attention to this matter. One of them said to the fierce-looking man with the buzz cut, "Boss, Jimmy has always been very good at judging people. Those who are chosen by him are all rich guys." "Yeah, boss. If we go now, we can definitely extort a lot of money. Those 3 Huaxia girls are not ordinary people." The guy with the buzz cut was very famous in this area. He was the boss of the Hua Hai gang. His subordinates called him boss, but outsiders called him Mad Dog. This guy was a mad dog who wouldn't let go once he bit someone. No one wanted to be bitten by him. This guy's biggest characteristic was that he specialized in bullying Asians and Chinese. He would never touch the local white people of the United States, even if they were just a waiter in a restaurant or a car washer. He would never touch them. He was afraid of getting into trouble. As for those black people who were more impulsive, he wouldn't provoke them. If they really fought, those black people's ability to take hits was much stronger than his. Those guys were the masters who could still punch after being shot. Compared to those guys, bullying Asians was the safest and most reliable way. Anyway, Asians were nothing more than a few countries. They couldn't make a big fuss. The Chinese were weak and swallowed their anger. The Koreans were arrogant on the surface, but after a few punches, they would immediately beg for mercy. The Japanese were not much to say. The Chinese in the world probably didn't like them. Even Mad Dog was full of disgust for the Japanese. As for the Indian, unless they were from the Indian gang, he would beat them up. Although this fierce-looking man with a buzz cut looked arrogant, in fact, from the things he did, it could be seen that he was a coward. He was not the kind of person who was heinous and unscrupulous. Perhaps it was because of people like him that the reputation of the Asian gang was tarnished in the world. Were the 3 people Jimmy brought home decently dressed? Mad Dog asked. If they were decently dressed, they were not aggressive guys. This was his experience in robbing and kidnapping for many years. Very decently dressed. They were all decently dressed. One of them was wearing a famous brand. I saw his Hermes leather shoes. This guy was obviously talking about a legendary battle pet warrior. Legendary battle pet warriors were all wearing luxury goods. Mad Dog looked at him disdainfully. Are you sure they're not knockoffs? The Huaxia people's love for knockoffs was not only limited to their country, but it also seemed to be the same abroad. Chapter 38:16. Mad Dog's subordinate was a little confused. He had never seen the real deal, so he couldn't make a judgment. They were brought out of the ghetto by Jimmy. They're dressed so well, but they still dare to enter the ghetto. They must have never seen the dark side of society. The rich may not have seen it, but the people around them must have warned them. Mad Dog lit another cigarette. Who cares if they're rich or not? I'll go see for myself. Yes, boss. We can definitely extort a lot of money from them. Mad Dog's subordinates all nodded in agreement. Their blood boiled whenever they bullied Asians. Maybe they're just tourists in Los Angeles. They don't know that places where black people gather must be chaotic. Let's go remind them that this is an iron law in the United States. Mad Dog had a sly smile on his face, but he didn't know that many people were saying that places where Huaxia gathered must be chaotic too. Mad Dog thought back to when his father had first brought him to the United States. At that time, he hadn't come to California yet. His father had taken him to the eastern part of the United States, Maryland. He remembered that one night when he drove through the ghetto of Baltimore, he felt like he had entered a horror movie. When they drove through the streets, it was as if they had entered a ghost town. It was pitch black. Everywhere was deathly silent. It wasn't until they drove into Johns Hopkins University that they felt like they had left a ghost town. Mad Dog was only 5 years old at that time, and it had left a deep psychological scar on him. Even now, he didn't want to go to the ghetto alone at night. In the United States, even Boston, which used to be a very anti-black city, had some areas that were about to be taken over by black people. Although the proportion of white people in Boston was still more than 80%, some areas were still unsafe. The main reason was that now that black people had racial discrimination as a shield, many people didn't dare to do anything to them. There were many streets in the United States named after black leaders. Of course, they weren't named by any authority. Some black people voluntarily named the streets where they lived after the leaders who had fought for black civil rights. The great black leader who had spoken, "I have a dream," was worthy of respect, but it was best not to go near the streets named after him. There were many roads named after him in the United States. To put it simply, the more black people there were, the more roads were named. Almost every state in the United States had such roads, and the southeast coast was the most densely populated. It was so dense that almost every city had a road with such a name. There were more in the western regions as well, because these places had the most black people. The naming of roads by black leaders had become a social phenomenon in the American Empire. Many people in the United States of America knew that if you were not black, you would be walking in the wrong place if you were standing on the road named by the black leaders. That was because the street with this name was a place where unemployed black people gathered in the big cities of the United States. This kind of place was the place with the most shootings, drugs, and robberies. The Chinese neighborhood where Mad Dog and the others lived was not too far away from one of these dangerous black neighborhoods. Mad Dog had warned many Chinese people in the area where he lived to stay away from the black neighborhood. He had also taught many Chinese people who had just arrived in Los Angeles. Even if they were tourists, he would warn them to stay away. However, Some of the things they did were no cleaner than the black people. His hands were even darker, dirtier, and more disgusting. When some Chinese people entered the black neighborhood, they would be robbed. But in the Chinese neighborhood controlled by Mad Dog, it was not safe. They might not be robbed, but they would definitely be stolen. Stealing was a very technical job. In the United States of America, it might only exist in places with a large Chinese population. Stealing in the black neighborhoods was rare because they were more direct robberies. They were too lazy to steal, and they did not have the skills to do so. Mad Dog had made his fortune by stealing. He was a master at using chopsticks. He could use them to take out all kinds of wallets and cell phones from the pockets of passers-by. To say that he was a Chinese gangster was an insult to the word Chinese. He had been a thief from the beginning. It was only when his organization of thieves grew larger and larger that he began to rob people, burglarize people's houses, and extort money from people. That was how he became a gangster. Mad Dog quickly led his men towards Jimmy's home. He was an idiotic bastard who loathed and disgusted the black neighborhood while turning the Chinese neighborhood into an equally disgusting place. Bang! Mad Dog kicked open Jimmy's door, just in time to see Jimmy holding a dazzling, luxurious watch. There were indeed 3 Hua Xia men in Jimmy's house. The 3 Hua Xia men looked at them. One was calm, one was excited, and one was scared. The calm one was Su Yun. He had realized that they were being followed, but he didn't think that these guys would be so brazen as to break in. This was crazy. The excited one was Lin Gu. He didn't care who came in. If anyone dared to mess with him, he would teach them a lesson. He would teach them a lesson. This was the United States of America, a country that worshipped strength and fists. As long as he didn't kill anyone, he wouldn't have to take any responsibility. There was no need to say who was scared. The legendary coward was very afraid of running into trouble in the slums. Mad Dog, what do you think you're doing? The kid in the cap quickly stuffed the watch Su Yun had given him into his pocket. Mad Dog, however, had noticed. A cold smile was on his face as he said to the legendary warrior in a threatening voice, "Jimmy, I advise you to cooperate with me. Give me that thing you're hiding." Su Yun glanced at the man in the cap. "Your name is Jimmy?" "Yes." Jimmy nodded. "Jimmy done." Su Yun made an "oh" sound. He was as calm as ever, almost as though he didn't think anything of the intruder at all. He had heard Jimmy call him Mad Dog, and he knew that this man was definitely not a good person. A good person wouldn't have such an ugly nickname. "Jimmy, this isn't the time for you to introduce yourself to your friends." Mad Dog chuckled coldly. 2 of his men came in as well, but because Jimmy's house was too small, the others didn't come in. Jimmy looked at Mad Dog warily. "I don't have any money, and you won't find anything in my house. Just give up. You'll never tell me the truth, kid." Mad Dog knew that Jimmy had hidden the watch in his pocket. As far as he was concerned, the watch was already in his pocket. He wasn't worried that Jimmy wouldn't give it to him. He'd take it sooner or later anyway. Right now, Mad Dog's interest was focused on the 3 Hua Xia men in front of him. He looked Su Yun and Lin Gu up and down, then at the legendary warrior, who was dressed in designer clothes but was already trembling in fear. The legendary warrior wasn't worried that Su Yun and Lin Gu wouldn't be able to defeat the intruder. What he was worried about was that the intruder had a gun. If the intruder opened fire, bullets wouldn't have eyes. He was worried that he would be accidentally injured. "What do you do for a living?" After confirming that Su Yun was the leader of the 3, Mad Dog said to Su Yun, "Don't think that I don't know anything. I probably know a lot more than you do. The police are looking for you. If you don't want to go to jail, you'd better cooperate with me." Jimmy took a deep breath. "Mad Dog, they're just wanderers. What you're doing isn't appropriate at all. Don't go too far. Since when do you have the right to speak here?" Mad Dog glared viciously at Jimmy. "Jimmy, I'm warning you. You'd better shut up, kid. This is my turf. If you want to live on in this neighborhood, you'd better shut your fucking mouth." Jimmy was trembling from head to toe after being threatened. Su Yun could tell that Jimmy was afraid. Anyone would be afraid in the face of something like this. Jimmy was just a kid, a 13-year-old kid. For him to be able to do what he did was already a testament to his courage. At the very least, most 13-year-old kids wouldn't be able to do what he did. Chapter 38:17. Yelling at a kid isn't something a normal person would do. Soo-yoon looked up at Mad Dog. Have you always been like this? Me? What about me? Mad Dog spat. Do you think he's a good kid who's learning English and brought you here to help you? You're all wrong. He's a cunning little fox. Ha ha ha. If you knew that he could stab a guy in a black neighborhood with a sharp knife, would you still think he's a good kid? Soo-yoon nodded. If it was for self-defense, I would think he's a good kid. At least compared to you, who bullies the weak and fears the strong, he's clearly a good kid. You, on the other hand, are just a coward who bullies the weak and fears the strong. Hearing Soo-yoon's words, Mad Dog's men all rolled up their sleeves, ready to beat him up. Mad Dog, however, sneered and stopped his men from using violence. He said to Soo-yoon provocatively, "You're very brave, aren't you? But I'd like to know who gave you that courage." Oh, I see. Perhaps I didn't make one thing clear to you. This place, yes, the place you're standing on, this block is all my territory. Do you understand now? Zhong Tai asked as he looked at Zhong Tai with a serious expression. You sure have a lot of bullshit to say. Soo-yoon gave Mad Dog a disgusted look. Are you done? Mad Dog had never been insulted like this before. This guy didn't give him any face at all. To the Mad Dog, this was an utter humiliation. You'll regret everything you've done. Mad Dog viciously pulled out a pistol from behind his back and aimed it at Soo-yoon. Now, I want you to kneel down and apologize to me. Right now. Lin Gu had the coin ready in his hand. He could throw it at any time. All he needed was Soo-yoon's order. The legend had already curled up in a corner of the room. The thing he feared most had already happened. He didn't want to be shot through. Mad Dog. No. Don't do this. Little Jimmy was also nervous. Although he had grown up in the slums and had seen all kinds of guns, he was still afraid if someone really wanted to kill someone with a gun in front of him. The calmest person was still Soo-yoon. If you really want to use a pistol to threaten people, at least load the gun and remove the safety. Otherwise, I don't feel afraid at all. Being aimed at by an unloaded pistol with the safety off, only an idiot would be scared to the point of trembling. You forced me to do this. Mad Dog's eyes were bloodshot. He quickly unlocked the gun and loaded it. After completing this series of actions, Soo-yoon suddenly snatched the pistol from Mad Dog's hand and pressed it against Mad Dog's forehead. Mad Dog's mind was completely blank. His opponent had moved far too fast, so fast that he didn't even have a chance to react. Everything that had just happened was completely inconceivable. The two men who had followed Mad Dog in had finally finished drawing their guns. They aimed at Soo-yoon, but they themselves were extremely nervous. They were their boss, after all. Someone was pointing a gun at his head. I'll only need 0.2 seconds to pull the trigger. If you're confident that you'll be able to take the gun from me in that time, then go ahead. In Mad Dog's eyes, Soo-yoon's smile was like the Grim Reaper looking back at him. Soo-yoon didn't even need to say anything. Mad Dog immediately gave the order to his subordinates. Put down your guns. Boss. The two men didn't want to give up. After all, once their pistols left their hands, the situation would no longer be under their control. They themselves would be in danger. Hurry up. Mad Dog roared. But his men still didn't do as he was told. One of them took aim at Lin Gu and yelled at Soo-yoon, "Put the gun down." The other man did the same. He aimed his pistol at the legendary figure, clearly intending to fight Soo-yoon head-on. Although Soo-yoon had their boss in his hands, they had the lives of the other two men in their hands. 2 versus 1. It was easy to see which was more important. Lin Gu wouldn't be killed by a pistol at this distance. Even if he couldn't dodge the bullet, he wouldn't let the bullet hit him in any vital areas. Besides, the bullets in the enemy's hands might not even be as fast as the coins in his hands. The legendary figure didn't have much of a choice. Seeing the pistol aimed at him, he immediately yelled at Su Yun, "Put the gun down. Don't get me killed because of your stupidity." Su Yun ignored the legendary figure's yelling. He knew that the man was just threatening him. "It seems that your subordinates don't think much of you, their boss." Su Yun was still very relaxed. "I'm sure they'll follow you partly because of the benefits and partly because of fear. I don't think it's because of loyalty and respect, right?" With the pistol pressed to his head, Mad Dog didn't dare to talk back. He could only vent his anger on his men. "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear what I said? Put the gun down. His pistol is pressed to my head. Do you think killing those two will solve the problem?" Mad Dog growled viciously. His life was his #1 priority. "Boss, if we put the gun down, we'll have no chance at all." The men still insisted. Mad Dog ground his teeth in anger. "That bastard! I'll put it down. I'll put it down." One of the men seemed to be even more afraid of Mad Dog, and he carefully put the pistol down. The legendary figure let out a sigh of relief when he saw the pistol aimed at Lin Gu-drop. However, he still had his other gun raised. Although it was aimed at Lin Gu, he was still worried that the enemy would aim it at him after killing Lin Gu. Su Yun said to Mad Dog, "Looks like I did you a big favor." "What do you mean?" Mad Dog's breathing grew ragged. "I helped you find a guy in your gang who wants to be your successor. Su Yun, even if I kill you now, you don't have to worry about no one protecting your territory. There are people who want you dead." Su Yun's words completely enraged Mad Dog. The man still holding the pistol heard Su Yun's provocation and immediately aimed it at Su Yun. Su Yun said softly to Mad Dog, "I'll give you a choice. 1. You clean up your own gang. I promise I won't shoot you. 2. I'll shoot you. Choose." As soon as Su Yun finished speaking, Mad Dog turned around and hit the man in the throat with his elbow. Then he grabbed the pistol, aimed it at the man's heart, and pulled the trigger, killing him with a single shot to the chest. This guy hadn't hesitated at all when he'd killed someone. Perhaps in a place like this, in a dark corner of the American Empire, even if there was a murder case, the police wouldn't really try to find the murderer. After all, the victim was just a small fry in a Chinese gang. He wasn't worth the attention of the noble Americans. The cases that the American police paid attention to were always those that targeted the rich of the American Empire. Asian cases really didn't matter to them. This wasn't the first time Mad Dog had killed someone, so he didn't feel any psychological pressure or burden. After killing the man, he turned around and prepared to shoot at Su Yun. But the moment he turned around, the coin in Lin Ji's hand shot out and hit Mad Dog's wrist joint. Mad Dog cried out in pain, and the pistol in his hand fell to the ground. At this moment, he turned around and bumped right into Su Yun's gun. "You're in such a hurry to reincarnate? You've just cleaned up your gang and now you want to die?" Su Yun chuckled as he looked at Mad Dog. "It seems you and your man really are close friends. You just killed him, and now you want to accompany him. Are you afraid he'll be lonely on the road to the Yellow Springs?" Beads of sweat rolled down Mad Dog's forehead. He had no idea that it was a coin that had hit his wrist. He thought that his opponent had used some sort of sorcery on him. You, who are you?" Mad Dog's voice trembled slightly. "I'm sorry for what happened today. If you promise not to kill me, I'll take my men and leave right now. I promise I won't take revenge. I promise." "Your promise is worthless to me. Su Yun, I believe that before this guy you killed followed you, you promised him that as long as he followed you, he'd be able to live a good life. But now you've killed him." Chapter 38:18. Su Yun's provocation was truly heart-wrenching. At least these words were harsh in the ears of Mad Dog's subordinates, not just the one beside him, but the dozen or so people standing outside the house. When they heard Su Yun's words, their hearts couldn't help but thump. No one wanted to be used as a tool. Even if they were gangsters in the United States, to put it nicely, it was for a bright future, not to be used as a tool. But now, because of Su Yun, they saw their situation clearly. They were all tools used by Mad Dog, tools to make money, tools to intimidate others, tools to rob, kidnap, and even kill. In the eyes of Mad Dog, they were worthless. Once Mad Dog thought they might threaten his position, he would kill them without hesitation. This was what happened in front of their eyes. All of this was clearly seen by all of them. Anyone would trust their own eyes more. They would be willing to believe what they saw and heard. At this moment, Mad Dog's authority in the hearts of the Huahai brothers could be said to have been completely lost. No one would risk their lives for a disloyal boss. Mad Dog might have been a very nice man, and he might have made very nice promises, but what he was doing right now was a complete violation of all his previous promises. His behavior was treachery. No gang leader would casually kill their own brothers, but because of an outsider's words, he didn't hesitate to make a move. How could he convince the others? What kind of boss was a boss who couldn't convince the others? Damn it! You'd better give us an explanation. This was what all of the Huahai brothers were thinking. Although Mad Dog hated Su Yun for slandering him, he still didn't dare to act rashly on the surface. Believe me, I'll keep my promise, I swear to God. You believe in God? Su Yun was puzzled. Impossible. How can you believe in God? You don't believe in God, so your oath is meaningless. Mad Dog shook his head vigorously. I believe in God, of course I believe in God. I'm a man of faith. If you believed in God, then you definitely wouldn't do what you're doing now. Su Yun said, because you know very well that everyone in this neighborhood will pray to God that you die a horrible death. If you had believed in God, you would not have done what you are doing. I pray to God every day, hoping that he'll make you die a horrible death. Jimmy followed closely behind Su Yun. He knew that he would not be able to continue living in this place in the future. Not to mention that Mad Dog would not let him go. Even if Mad Dog died in the hands of Su Yun today, the other members of the Huahai gang would not let him go. They would all be eyeing the watch on his body that was worth $100,000. Moreover, someone had died in his house today. This house that he had always hated, he could finally throw it away without any scruples. Anyway, this was a broken place that no one lived in. In a situation where no one could take care of him, it was already very good that he could get a place like this as a temporary home. But it was different now. He had $100,000. As long as he could sell the watch, he could rent a house anywhere. Jimmy's curse had cut off all his escape routes. Jimmy, they're just outsiders. They won't stay here forever. The muscles on Mad Dog's face trembled as he threatened Jimmy in this way. You think I'll stay here forever? Now that Jimmy had decided to go all out, he seemed to have transformed into a different person. His courage had grown, and he actually pulled out the watch he had hidden in his pocket and waved it in front of Mad Dog's face. See? This is a watch worth $100,000 or more. I don't belong to this damn place anymore. A watch worth $100,000. These words attracted everyone's attention. It was like a piece of rotten meat that attracted all the dirty flies. At this moment, Mad Dog could not say a word. His heart felt like it was being blocked by something. It was uncomfortable, but he could not release it. If you want to live a few more years, you should keep a low profile. Lin Ji's expression was a little helpless. This kid was still too young, he thought. Jimmy, however, let out a long sigh. I've been holding these words in my heart for many years. I really need to get them off my chest. It's good that you're letting it out. At least now you've spat out all the garbage in your stomach, and then you'll be able to take it again, Su Yun said calmly. It's better to let it out now than later. Jimmy looked at Su Yun. People like him who had been through the same things he had done in his life would naturally be on guard against everyone, but he had a very good impression of Su Yun, a complete stranger. It could be said that he trusted Su Yun completely. This was something he had never trusted anyone before, not even his own parents. We'll do as you say. Mad Dog didn't want to waste any more words. If you kill me, I guarantee that my people won't let you leave this place safely. You have no choice but to make peace with me. You're a smart man. You know that. Su Yun nodded. I'm a smart man, but unfortunately, you're not. Mad Dog was stunned for a moment. Lin Gu walked forward and picked up the handgun that Mad Dog had just dropped. He deftly unloaded the magazine, pulled out the barrel, and pulled out the clip, pulling the loaded bullet all the way back. As he passed by the window, the loaded bullet ejected out of the window. He grabbed the bullet and reloaded it into the magazine, reloaded the magazine, turned off the safety, and stuffed the handgun into the back of his waist. How can you be sure that if we kill you, your subordinates will really risk their lives for a dead you? Su Yun continued to ask. Lin Gu picked up the other handgun that Mad Dog's subordinates had voluntarily tossed to the ground. Just like before, Lin Gu ejected the loaded bullet, reloaded the magazine, turned off the safety, and then stuffed the handgun into his waistband. I have the feeling that even if I don't kill you, your people probably won't risk their lives for you, right? Su Yun smiled. I don't know how many of you there are, but we have 3 handguns in our hands right now. Lin Gu continued Su Yun's words. We don't want to make a big deal out of this. Shooting in a place like this isn't a matter of numbers. You have more people, and you'll be able to get shot easily. The bullets in those 3 handguns are more than enough to make you suffer. Su Yun smiled as he looked at Mad Dog's subordinates, waiting for them to make their own decisions. If you choose to leave now, then we'll be able to stay safe between us. Lin Gu shrugged, then continued. He knew exactly what Su Yun meant. This guy we're controlling has been unkind to you. Do you still recognize him as your boss? Shut up. Mad Dog stared at Lin Gu in terror. He didn't want Lin Gu to continue. Lin Gu didn't seem to hear Mad Dog's voice at all. Come on, although you live in the United States, you still have Hua Xiao's blood running in your veins. You gangsters have to worship Guan Yu, don't you? If Guan Yu knew that you were following such a disloyal boss, he probably wouldn't be able to hold back his coffin. He'd crawl out of his grave and call you idiots. Wake up. Everyone in Hua Hai Gang was silent. To be honest, Hua Hai Gang was a very small force in Los Angeles. They didn't have much capital or ability. All they could do was steal from the Chinese and rob them. Only by showing off their strength to the Asians could the guys in the black neighborhood have a certain amount of scruples about them. In fact, they didn't have any real strength. If the people in the black neighborhood really wanted to deal with them, people like Mad Dog would probably have to run. A mad dog would only act like a hungry wolf in front of Asians. He only dared to bite Chinese people without letting go. In front of others, he was not a mad dog at all. Most of the time, he was just a pug. So what future could they have by following him? The people in Hua Hai Gang became a little angry at this moment. They followed Mad Dog and didn't get anything out of it. Now they had to risk their lives for him? Why? Everyone needed a reason to do something. Everyone needed to find a reasonable explanation for everything they did. No one was stupid enough to risk their lives for something that didn't make sense. Everyone needed a reasonable reward. P.S. Android users are lucky. Download the new 17K mobile app. Benefits are many. No ads in the app. The app can be downloaded and read offline. Even if there is no internet, you can read chapters that have been downloaded in advance. Every 3 days you sign in, you can get a day of VIP and read the works on the website for free. Users who are already VIPs can also get it. Some works will be exempted from the app. The app will continue to launch more promotional activities in the future. Here is the download link. http://img 17k Comp Simpliant Android 17k Red 5 1 2 Zuos Heap 5 1 2 Bishien Release APK Chapter 38:19 You're the ones who don't have a choice. Su Yun exerted a tremendous amount of pressure on them. The members of the Hua Hai gang didn't disappoint Su Yun, despite the pressure and lack of respect. They made the only right choice. When Mad Dog saw the man in the room turn and leave, his heart burned with fury. "You're betraying me! A bunch of disloyal bastards! Mad Dog, you betrayed us first." Someone outside the door spoke up. "The Hua Hai gang would be the same without you. The Huaxia Street would be the same without you. Without me, you'd never be able to survive. Don't you remember who gave you enough food to eat every day?" Mad Dog cursed. "Before you joined me, you were just a bunch of trash. If we don't stick together, the bastards from the Black Bloc will come and bully us." Perhaps it was because Mad Dog's words made sense, or perhaps it was because his men had some old feelings for him, but they hesitated for a moment. If you only live to fill your stomachs and have no other higher pursuits, then what's the difference between you and the stray dogs beside the trash can? Su Yun said. "Since you're human, you should live like a human." Lin Gu laughed loudly. "You're just afraid that the bastards from the Black Bloc will come and cause trouble for you? That's not necessary. We've just taught those bastards a lesson. They didn't form a gang because they were afraid of the bastards from the Black Bloc. It's because of their own laziness and incompetence." Su Yun said coldly. "Even a kid like Jimmy dared to go to the Black Bloc at night to look for business. Why wouldn't they?" Everyone lowered their heads in shame. "You only know how to show your ugly and cruel faces to your own people. You only know how to bully Asians. To tell you the truth, you're worse than the gangsters from the Black Bloc. Su Yun, after today, you'd better not bully your own people. Otherwise, you'll end up like Mad Dog. I promise you that's not what happens to him." The members of the Hua Hai gang couldn't help but hold their breaths. For some reason, they felt a sense of fear. What are you going to do to me?" Mad Dog was terrified now. He didn't want to die yet. "Don't kill me. I beg you. I don't want to dirty my hands by killing you," Su Yun said, "but if I give you to the brothers in the black neighborhood, as a reward, I'm sure they'll be happy to help me take care of the cars parked in their neighborhood." Mad Dog was completely flabbergasted. No, you can't do that to me. I think there seems to be some misunderstanding between you and the brothers from the black neighborhood. As the boss, you should go and deal with it." Su Yun didn't give him a chance. He grabbed Mad Dog and left, and Mad Dog was completely unable to fight back against Su Yun. Lin Gu pulled Legend to his feet and motioned for him to go with them. Jimmy followed closely behind. He had a watch that was worth $100,000, so he would never be separated from Su Yun and the others. For some reason, the other members of the Hua Hai gang followed behind Su Yun. The two neighborhoods were very close to each other, and there had been a lot of misunderstandings. No one knew how most of the misunderstandings had started, but they all knew that Mad Dog was extremely afraid of black people. Perhaps it was because of some childhood trauma. "I beg you, please don't send me to that place. Everyone in the United States knows that no one wants to go to the black neighborhood." Mad Dog screamed. This was the truth. No one wanted to go to the black neighborhood. Only those who had experienced it knew how dilapidated it was. There were almost no residents, no office buildings, and no shopping malls. It was a kind of depression that was hard to understand. In fact, it all seemed to be thanks to Martin Luther King. Many people knew of his speech, the deeply moving, "I Have a Dream." It was even a passage from Huaxia High School's Chinese textbook. Naturally, Su Yun had also read this speech. At that time he was about 10 years old. At that time, he really worshipped this hero. Every word of this speech made Su Yun feel an unprecedented shock. But after coming to the United States several times, seeing more and more legacies left by this great man, and seeing the faces of all kinds of black politicians, Su Yun began to wonder if he could still be regarded as a national hero. If his original intention was good, then the behavior of many black people now was definitely discrediting him. If black people really wanted others to eliminate prejudice against them, what they needed to do was not to use political means to block other people's mouths, nor to talk about racial discrimination and human rights, but to be a real person. Before Su Yun had that experience in Detroit, He would have thought that, cherish your life and stay away from the black neighborhood, was racist. But after living in the ghetto of Detroit for a period of time, he realized that those huaxia moral be asterisk cheese who would point at others and say that it was racial discrimination had never really seen the ghetto. These seemingly virtuous people had never been to the black neighborhood and had no real experience. In the eyes of those people, the black neighborhood was as cool as the background of a rap music MV. It was the kind of place that was otherworldly. It was the kind of place where there were all kinds of people talking and laughing. What was the real black neighborhood? Su-Yun had experienced it before. It was not that ordinary places with a lot of black people and the black neighborhood built by the school were not real black neighborhoods. The black neighborhood they were going to at the moment could not be regarded as a real black neighborhood. The real black neighborhood of the United States could be said to be a place where there were no traces of human civilization. When Su-Yun first entered the real black neighborhood of Detroit, there was a black man standing not far away on the street with a gun aimed at him. There was no reason at all. It was just aimed at him. It was like aiming at a wild animal that this guy wanted to stew at night. If it was not because Su-Yun's aura was strong enough to make the other party have some concerns, the guy would probably have really shot. Gunshots would be heard from time to time, but the people living here seemed to be completely used to it and were not nervous about the gunshots at all. It was also the first time Su-Yun learned that in the world, other than the Golden Triangle, Silver Triangle, and Golden Crescent, there were places where drugs could be sold openly. After all, the United States was a country with government regulations and laws. At that time, Su-Yun really could not understand one thing that he felt was more ridiculous than drugs and guns, and that was the right to vote. He saw some pro-Obama slogans that were spray-painted on the wall. He did not understand why these people had the right to vote. And their vote was actually the same as the vote of the hard-working engineers or doctors who paid taxes to support their welfare. Su-Yun could only sigh. This was the essence of democracy and human rights in the United States. Su-Yun still remembered that in the real black neighborhood, he could see sports shoes hanging from wires when he looked up. Some of them were very good new Jordan basketball shoes. Of course, it was the AJ brand under the United States Nike, and not the Jordan Sports Company's counterfeit goods that Hua Xia had stolen. Sports shoes hanging from electric poles were meaningful in the black neighborhood. If ordinary people saw it, they would quickly run away. Because people had died in such places, the owner of the shoes must have been murdered under the position where the shoes were hanging. Yes, sports shoes that were hanging were equivalent to the head of the person who was murdered. After all, this was the United States, not the primitive tribes on the African continent. If it was those primitive tribes, it would definitely be a bloody head that was hanging. Later on, Su-Yun slowly learned that sports shoes hanging from wires above the head represented a lot of meanings in the real black neighborhood. For example, the gangs used these sports shoes to determine the strength of the gang. Sometimes, these sports shoes also meant that new drugs were coming in, and it meant that there was a lot of drugs in this place. Because in the real black neighborhood, drugs were openly sold goods. It was as simple as an ordinary person buying a pack of cigarettes in a store, but ordinary people only needed to spend money to buy a pack of cigarettes in the store, but if they bought drugs here, they might lose their lives. Chapter 38:20. It was then that Su-Yun truly understood how dangerous the ghetto in the United States was. To put it simply, the ghetto in the United States was a completely different concept from the slums that ordinary people saw in movies. The society in the United States had its own set of rules, such as guns, a certain degree of openness to drugs, and respect for individuals. These rules were completely applicable to the United States in the past. They made the United States in the past a paradise. But in this case, the ghetto in the United States was completely reduced to hell on earth. It had to be said that the spiritual level of the black people was far from that of other people. Even the half-black Hindustanis in India had not fully evolved on a certain spiritual level. Therefore, in the country of India, there were women who were raped every day. Some of them were raped alone, and some were raped in groups. Some of the women went to the police after being raped, but in the end, they were raped again by the police. This should be the reason why some people had not evolved properly. In these terrifying ghetto areas, The government had a written rule that the police must force more than 3 people to enter. This was because the ghetto areas were too dangerous. If the police went in alone, it was very likely that they would be killed. The police in the United States did not earn much, but compared to the police in Huaxia, they were much more dangerous. Even the most powerful mafia in Huaxia had to be courteous to the police. Generally, the main method was to bribe the police. They did not dare to directly attack or murder the police. This was a serious crime. Of course, the ghetto area they were going to now was very different from the one Su Yun had seen in Detroit. This place could not be compared to the real ghetto. It was not on the same level. But it was also very dangerous here. Not only here, but the streets of Los Angeles and even the entire United States were not safe. No one knew which *TCH invented the game, Knock Down the Passerby. It was very popular among many black teenagers in the United States. They attacked innocent passers-by and knocked them out with a punch. Many innocent people in the United States were victims. Even the elderly in their 70s and 80s were not spared. It was said that this kind of despicable game was popular in New Jersey. There were cases in many big cities. The rules of the game were very simple. Choose an innocent stranger to attack. The process was to suddenly punch the passerby's head and neck, and knock them to the ground unexpectedly. Then, post the video online to show off your strength. This had caused so many deaths. Therefore, he had to be more vigilant when he saw black children in the United States. Those who wandered the streets definitely did not come from good families. They definitely did not receive a good education. It was very likely that they were bad guys who did not have parents. Moreover, the targets of these little black kids were very obvious. They almost always attacked Jews, then Asians, and then whites. They would not attack blacks. What was even scarier was AIDS. Everyone was well aware of where this terrifying infectious disease was most common, and who had the most people. This level of horror was a threat to the entire human race. Black people did not contribute much to the advancement of human civilization, but they had a strong role in the spread of AIDS. Therefore, those moral *cheese who yelled and scolded racial discrimination every day should shut their mouths. If they were really saints, they should go live in the ghetto for a year. No, 1 month is enough. At that time, even if he didn't die, he would be infected with a deadly disease. Su Yun was someone who had lived in Detroit, the city that went bankrupt because of the black people's invasion. It was once a world-famous automobile city, one of the largest and most prosperous cities in the United States. What had become of it now? It was the capital of hell. Empty skyscrapers, dilapidated villas, and dispirited unemployed people wandering around with beer bottles. This was Su Yun's first impression of Detroit. This was also Su Yun's best impression of Detroit, because every day here made Su Yun more disgusted. Su Yun knew that Detroit's decline was the result of the accumulation of social problems in the United States. There were a large number of blacks, and the crime rate rose sharply. People of other races fled because of this. The criminals were all blacks, and so were the officials. There was a reason why blacks were said to be lazy. Because they basically did not produce. A broken Detroit with a population of only 700,000 people, which was equivalent to the population of a small county in Huaxia, had a debt ratio of $20 billion. It was USD. Any city with a large number of blacks in the United States would fall into a financial quagmire to pay for welfare and social security. Blacks were more dependent on social welfare than whites, because they were lazy and hated work. It was not only the blacks in the United States, but also the blacks in Huaxia. Even if they were supported by social welfare, the extreme criminal tendencies of the blacks still caused the taxpayers of other races to flee. The mess left behind was a paradise for the bankrupt government and blacks criminals. The blacks had encountered racial segregation, and then they wantonly changed their ideology to, blacks were bullied in the past, and other races were wrong, so they should pay for the wrong actions of their ancestors. In order to show that they were wrong in the past, the United States gave blacks many opportunities to surpass whites in terms of education and so on. They even let a black person become the president. Now in the United States, whites were afraid of saying the wrong thing because they were afraid that blacks would feel that they were discriminating against them. They said that South Africa had overcorrected the racial issues after racial segregation, and put the blacks as the victims who should enjoy rights. They put other races on the side that should compensate the blacks, and as a result, whites were now being persecuted and massacred by the blacks. Originally, South Africa was a developed country similar to Canada or Australia. After all, it had such a good geographical location and resources. But what happened after they gave up on racial segregation? The blacks immediately took over the political power through elections, and social order collapsed, and the economy collapsed. All kinds of murder, robbery, theft, and rape rates were extremely rare in modern countries. Su Yun could even bluntly say that black people were like this all over the world. Whether it was Harlem, Detroit, Johannesburg, or Uganda, all black societies, there was no exception. They were all societies with low production and high crime rates. The so-called racial discrimination was only effective against other races, and the blacks did not care about the law at all. They could maliciously attack Jews, Asians, whites, and everyone else, but they did not allow other races to call them blacks. 90% of crimes against other races were caused by the blacks attacking other races first. What right did they have to say racial discrimination? Using the words of Goddess Hua Fei, bitches were hypocrites. The blacks were really hypocrites, and those who had really come into contact with them would definitely feel this way. Even if you looked at them more than once, they would think that you were discriminating against them, and then ask you in a contemptuous tone, "What are you looking at?" Every time Su Yun thought about his life in Detroit, he would inexplicably worry about the Guangxin province on the southern coast of Huaxia. The blacks in the United States were also concentrated in the good coastal areas of the United States. Su Yun was a little worried that the blacks would invade Huaxia society, because the descendants of the dragon and the descendants of the gorilla were thousands of years apart in terms of spiritual civilization. Su Yun knew that in fact, many of the blacks had a special purpose. They came to Huaxia to trick a Huaxia woman into marrying and having children, and then settle down in Huaxia. After that, they would ask to be naturalized as Huaxia citizens and enjoy the benefits of Huaxia. If it was not granted, they would smash and rob on the streets every day, and at the same time, by pretending to be pitiful and saying racial discrimination, coupled with the pressure of public opinion in Western countries, they would force Huaxia to take the taxes that the people of Huaxia worked hard to pay to support them. After that, they would ask to set up a reverse law like the United States, which would allow them to have privileges in various aspects of resources. Following that, they would use human rights as a pretext to ask for political power, and ask for a portion of the officials to be blacks. Thinking of this, Su Yun could not help but want to curse. Some of the officials in Huaxia were already black-hearted enough. If some blacks were to be added, it would be black-hearted and black-hearted, both inside and out. Moreover, Su Yun had even thought of an even more terrible ending, where the blacks would ask for at least one black person to be the country's leader. From then on, the blacks' dream would be fulfilled. If Huaxia really had someone like Oba Donkey to usurp the power of Huaxia, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 38:21. Finally, Mad Dog was dragged by Su Yun to the black neighborhood next door. The appearance of so many Chinese people made the people curled up by the trash cans in this neighborhood stand up one after another. In the darkness, one dark shadow after another looked at the Chinese people in front of them warily. Su Yun dragged Mad Dog to the front and directly surrounded by many black people. When the black people saw Su Yun, they were instantly scared. This was the person who had just taught them a lesson, the person who knew Kung Fu. This made the black people present not dare to act rashly. All of them shut their mouths and obediently waited for Su Yun to give orders. "Who just said I was from the Huahai gang?" "Su Yun, I can tell you clearly that I'm not. As for this person, do you know him?" "Of course, I don't care. I'm just handing him over to you. You can do whatever you want with him. Lock him up and keep him as a pet. I believe no police will trouble you." Mad Dog's head was about to explode. Su Yun was going to kill him. After all, Su Yun didn't intend to leave him any way out from the beginning. He didn't kill him personally because he was afraid of dirtying his hands. This area belonged to the slums of Los Angeles. There were black people on one street and Chinese on the other. There was naturally a reason for the misunderstanding between everyone. And Su Yun was sure that Mad Dog must have caused trouble here, which made the black people hate the Hua Hai gang so much. This hatred would make these black people target the Hua Hai gang and all the Chinese people passing through here. Su Yun didn't want innocent people to be retaliated and hurt by this hatred, so the best way was to let these black people vent their hatred of the Hua Hai gang on Mad Dog. This would more or less reduce some of the black people's hatred of the Chinese. It was better than the current situation. "You can't do this to me. They'll kill me." Mad Dog quickly crawled to Su Yun's feet. Su Yun kicked him away. "If they can really give you a quick death, you'll be lucky. You'd better pray that they kill you as soon as possible. If they really raise you like a dog, you'll become a mad dog in a few days." A mad dog. Mad Dog was so terrified that his entire body was trembling. He was willing to throw away his dignity, his face, and everything else. He only hoped that Su Yun could take him away from this place full of black people. If these black people really tortured him like an animal, he would really go crazy. This was because when Mad Dog was a child on the East Coast, he had seen with his own eyes 3 black men knock a dog unconscious, then take turns to violate the unconscious dog. After that, they had caught a live pheasant from somewhere, and they had actually taken it to the back door. That scene was definitely a nightmare for him for the rest of his life. He was so afraid of black people all his life because of those shadows from when he was young. He was afraid of black people, disgusted by black people, hated black people. There was a reason for all of this. Suddenly, one of the black men grabbed Mad Dog's ankle and tried to drag him over. Mad Dog frantically slapped the man's hand away and clung desperately to Su Yun's shoe, almost crazily begging, "I beg you no. Don't do this to me. I'm Chinese too, we're all Chinese, we're all Chinese. I beg you, don't do this to me. We're all descendants of the Yellow Emperor, the same blood flows in our bodies." Su Yun didn't say anything. The black men saw that Su Yun was determined, and they tried to drag Mad Dog over again. They hated Mad Dog to the core, because in their eyes, Mad Dog and the Hua Hai gang were magical. These guys could take things from other people's pockets and put them into their own pockets. Any black man who passed through the Chinese street under the control of the Hua Hai gang would lose something. Although they didn't have anything on them, usually a small bag of drugs or something like that would be stolen by Mad Dog and his people. Mad Dog had always mocked black people for being stupid. Even if they were stolen 100 times, they wouldn't know how to prevent it. Only a few smart ones would wrap the drugs in oil paper and stuff them into their mouths, so that they wouldn't be stolen by the Hua Hai gang. This was the best opportunity for the black people to take revenge on Mad Dog. They would never let go of such a heaven-sent opportunity. These guys would definitely use the most vicious methods to torture Mad Dog, making him wish he was dead. Black people often enjoyed the pleasure of torturing people. In this way, they were probably similar to the primitive people of Huaxia thousands of years ago. Just imagine how terrible the black people's bad habits were, and how many methods they had to torture people. No. Mad Dog frantically slapped away the black hands that reached for him again, and he placed all of his focus on Su Yun. "I beg you. Since we're all Huaxia people, please spare me this time. I swear I'll do whatever you tell me to do in the future." Mad Dog's hysterical voice drifted through the ghetto, but there was no response. Everyone who heard the conversation knew that there might be another murder case tonight. "Now you know that we're all Huaxia people?" Su Yun looked coldly at Mad Dog. "When you bullied the Chinese, did you think of this problem? When you stole the wallets of your compatriots, did you think that they were also Huaxia people?" Mad Dog was stunned, and his whole body froze in front of Su Yun. "When you blackmailed the Chinese who did small business in Los Angeles, did you think that they were also your compatriots?" Su Yun continued to press. "Do you think that when you kidnapped the Chinese who came to the United States to pursue the dream of an empire, their inner thoughts were the same as yours?" This time, Mad Dog was completely speechless. He had never considered all of this. He had always regarded his compatriots as the easiest to bully, because he knew that his compatriots were the most likely to fall silent after being bullied, and the least likely to know how to protect their rights. So he recklessly damaged and invaded the rights of his compatriots. But in the end, what did he get? He got nothing. He just relied on gangs to steal, rob, and extort people. He would never have a future. This was the real reason why Mad Dog had nothing. If you hadn't killed one of your men in front of me today, I wouldn't have just stood by and watched you get humiliated by a black man. However, the evil you've done in front of me is enough for me to toss you here and let you taste the consequences of your actions. After saying this, Su Yun kicked Mad Dog aside. Mad Dog rolled into the crowd of black people and didn't resist this time. The deep sense of guilt made him realize that he should accept all of this punishment. Yes, he had to accept all of this punishment. He had to. Su Yun patted Jimmy on the shoulder, motioning for Jimmy to get into the car with them. This place was no longer a place to stay. The Los Angeles police had just patrolled this area, and their car had been taken off the license plate. As long as they avoided the police cars and got on Interstate 5 as soon as possible, they would be much safer away from Los Angeles. Because Jimmy couldn't stay here any longer, Su Yun felt that it was necessary to get him out of this chaotic circle of life. After all, Jimmy was not a bad child by nature. It was not easy for him to not become a bad child in such an environment. Along Interstate 5, they could drive all the way to the northwest city of Seattle. There were many Chinese people there, and compared to many cities in the American Empire, Seattle was a more civilized city. Perhaps letting Jimmy live in such a city would be a kind of salvation for him. In any case, because of what happened today, they couldn't stay in Los Angeles for a while. They couldn't come back even if they wanted to. Su Yun and the others didn't stop at all along the way. They only stopped to refuel, eat, and go to the bathroom. They drove for a total of 17 hours. After a day and night of non-stop travel, Su Yun and Lin Gu took turns driving. By the time they arrived in Seattle, night had fallen again. To be honest, Su Yun felt that Seattle gave him a more comfortable feeling than Los Angeles. Although the proportion of black people in Los Angeles and Seattle was not particularly high, about 90% of Seattle's population was white and Chinese. Although the proportion of black people in Los Angeles was not high, there were countless people of African descent. Those guys were also masters of crime. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.